All right. Welcome to Without a Country. If you're watching live, it's only an hour later than I said it would be. This is a world record. I'm CORINNE Fisher, a former New York City mayoral candidate 2025 and stand-up comedian. That's what I'm doing now, guys. Welcome to the show. If you're just joining us, this is a place where we discuss politics, and we are left-leaning. Well, I am left-leaning, but we certainly welcome everyone here, unlike liberals in general. We're not trying to cancel you. We're welcoming you. I'm rolling out a red carpet. If anyone is even right now tuned into this show because you're MAGA but you're thinking of leaving, this is me on air rolling out a red carpet. We need you. We want you. We're happy to have you, and we would love to have you. Please know this. Please know this. We need everyone on our team right now. Everyone needs to be on the team. And literally, the team is not, I don't think of the team as like Democrats versus Republicans. I think of the team as us versus billionaires and corporations. And so if you're on that team of being a regular person, like, and I'm talking about like, I know this is hard for people to believe, but like even most celebrities are regular people. I'm not saying I'm a celebrity. I'm saying like celebrity, like Julia Roberts. Like when we talk about billionaires and people who have access to have like political influence, I think sometimes people think of the room at the Oscars when in reality, it's mostly business people who have the kind of money. Like, you know, Lindsay Lohan, a couple of years ago when I just knew someone who knew, like her net worth was only like $8 million, which I know feels crazy that I'm scoffing at $8 million in a time when people are struggling financially. But like $8 million isn't enough money to like buy out an electric company or things that are really changing the world that we live in. So a lot of times we don't know the faces and names besides like the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezoses. There's a lot of people who are kind of controlling things financially that are flying under the radar a bit. And I think people often think of athletes and, movie stars as the richest people in the country, but that's not so. They're not. Those are not, for the most part, those people aren't billionaires. Obviously, like we have one of the Jenners is a billionaire. I believe Rihanna now is a billionaire. And then in the celebrity world, that's kind of it. I think LeBron James, I think, is a billionaire. I'm pretty sure he just hit billionaire status in 2024, 2025.
Michael Jordan.
Is he billionaire status?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's been a billionaire for a while.
But it's not, but it's most.
I think Jay-Z is too.
Yeah, most of the, well, I would search him in the Epstein files. There's yeah.
No, that goes for all of them. Like Sydney Sweeney is about to be a billionaire because of her
lingerie.
Yeah, because of her lingerie line aligning with Bezos and the private equity money that's coming into that.
Well, also the minute she started dating Scooter Braun, I'm like, no one's dating Scooter Braun for the tail. You know, when you're Sydney Sweeney hot, you're not like, who do I want to screw? Scooter Braun. First of all, you have to be rich if your name is Scooter and you want to have sex. That's number one. Sydney Sweeney has her pick of the litter. I mean, if Sydney Sweeney is going just by looks alone, she's probably dating Rob Roush from the Traders, you know, if you're just going looks. But she's going money, power, influence, which is smart. Good for her. I wouldn't date Scooter Braun for it, but that's what I'm saying now. Scooter Braun's also not interested in a 40-year-old woman who's podcasting in front of a tapestry. It is nice though. This does look good. I feel like this is we've gone full anarchist X-Files basement, which is what the vibe of the show always should be. That's what I want. I just want us sitting around like we're in the basement on the X-Files. So welcome to the show, everybody. Mercury is in retrograde. I was on the fence about even believing that until my entire Gmail got hacked today. I spent all day working on that. I was like, I'm going to wake up early today. And then now my full Gmail account is disabled and I can't get into it. This is a real redo of last year when they Zoom hacked me. It seems like it makes me, it's a bad look for this to happen when you turn 40 because it makes it look like I am unable to use technology. I promise you though, this is not, that's not the vibe. Like I'm pretty, I know what's going on. I'm not just clicking things. I'm not just answering phone calls. It's a sad coincidence, really, is what's happening. All right. Getting into political events. I have another political event coming up next week on Tuesday, this time for any wackos who are in New York City. This is in Brooklyn. I've been talking to you about Disrupt and how Disrupt is the left's response to Turning Point and how I'm going to be doing a lot of work with them. So the first public thing I'm doing with Disrupt is the NYC Social, and that's happening Tuesday, March 10th at 7 p.m. at Berry Park, on the rooftop at Berry Park, like interior rooftop. It's 4 Berry Street in Brooklyn. This is in Williamsburg. I've actually done comedy many times at Berry Park. And so this time I'm going to be part of they're calling it a political comedy panel. A lot of people are from like political podcasts, political influencers, and then me. I would say I'm the most, I don't know any of these other people as stand-ups, but certainly people who create like comedic political content. So we have Carlos, who is the head of Disrupt. He's the founder. He is going to be on the panel. Then we have Meg Klink from the Instagram account Pretty Informed Girls, which I really love that account. I follow them if you're interested. And then Charlie Goldenstone, who is the Shay Chuck creator. Again, he's like a political content creator, kind of like straight to camera, which I know I've been speaking out a lot against, but he's actually pretty known, good following. Davram Stiflet from The Good Liars. I've heard of The Good Liars. That name obviously has never come out of my mouth before. And then also Jason Selvig from The Good Liars. And then yours truly. So you can buy tickets through Act Blue. And if you're like, what the hell is Act Blue? Act Blue is most times when you're donating to a left-leaning campaign, you're going to use Act Blue. My campaign didn't use Act Blue because New York City recommends a different money site, but Act Blue for federal elections is normally what you use. So don't be alarmed by Act Blue. That's normal. All right. So see you hopefully March 10th if you want to do that. I think again, it's interesting. It's a great way to get involved, and it's definitely like, most of us, I think, on the panel are, if not all of us, are left-leaning. But again, I was talking to Carlos, and it's absolutely the same energy as Without a Country. Even though we are left-leaning, everyone is welcome, and we are looking for converts, not traitors. I'm going to rebrand what the Republicans are doing. And we now on the left need to be looking for converts instead of constantly looking for traitors. So please come to that if you would like to do some political chatter. All right. Also, I just saw this right before we started, but I can't play a big part of this in case it's like, going to mess up with trademark and copyright, or ding us in general. But Amanda Knox just released a single, and I got to play a piece of this for you. Amanda Knox, obviously, I know her a little bit. She appeared on GWF, and I like her. It's just funny to me, the trajectory of sometimes people in America, that you can go from being thought of and ostracized as a murderer publicly, and then years later, you're releasing a single. And you know what? That's why I love this. That's why I love this country.
I would say don't.
Just a piece of it. Less than 30 seconds is fine, right? That's just a piece of it. Why would you say don't? You think we're going to get it dinged?
I mean, look, Amanda Knox, she knows her way around the legal system. Like, that's a person who can...
Oh. I thought you meant it because of YouTube rules.
I did mean it because of YouTube rules.
That was just a little piece I played. I just want you guys to get the energy of it, and then go to her Instagram if you want to hear the whole thing. But it was like a lullaby. I liked it. It soothed my soul a little bit. And that's what we need right before we go into the enemy of the state. This week's enemy of the state it's going to be RFK. Sorry, I know that's your boy, Mike, but...
Not for a while.
Okay. Well, he came for Dunkin, and so I must come for him.
What?
I know. I made it to the Hill, him coming for Dunkin. So RFK.
I mean, America runs on it, dude.
I know. It's like he doesn't. It's like he didn't even hear. RFK Jr. puts Dunkin on notice. Massachusetts governor says, "Come and take it," which is incredible. So Health and Human Services.
Isn't that New Hampshire's thing?
What?
Come and take. Oh no, that's Texas.
Well, I guess they're borrowing Texas's saying, but obviously, like when you come for Dunkin, you're coming for Massachusetts. So Health and Human Services Secretary RFK has said Dunkin and other companies will need to prove that their ingredients are safe, prompting Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey on Wednesday to reply back, "Come and take it." Kennedy, while at a rally at Brazos Hall last week in Austin, Texas, said, "We're going to ask Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks." Like, first of all, he's not even in the know because it's not called Dunkin' Donuts, my guy. It's Dunkin', and it's been only Dunkin' for quite some time. Show us the safety data that show that it's okay for a teenage girl to drink an iced coffee with 115 grams of sugar in it. It's not safe for any of us to be drinking that. Also, if you're a teenage girl and you're already drinking iced coffee, I would say cut back a little bit. I don't even think I drank coffee even semi-regularly until I was like 30 years old. And even now at 40, I would say I drink it once a week, maybe. And I know that's not the norm, but like I'm just saying like a teenage girl. Because like if you're that tired when you're a teenager, maybe something else is going on in your life. That's more my point. Like I'm exhausted now and I'm drinking a Celsius. I'm not better than coffee. I just prefer energy drinks over coffee. And 115 grams of sugar. I mean, that's not good, but we're all jacked up on sugar in this country. He added, as the audience applauded, "I don't think they're going to be able to do it. The reforms aim to ensure American foods follow the highest safety and nutritional standards globally." Maha Action, Kennedy's nonprofit health advocacy group, said in a statement explaining Kennedy's announcement. Listen, they tried to control our drinks several mayors ago in New York City. And I'm not for it. Like, give us the information and then we're adults and we can make the decisions we want to make with our health. All right. I think that if cigarettes and alcohol and marijuana and all these things are legal, then if I want my vice of choice to be a Dunkin', latte with 115 grams of sugar, which is not what I do because I keep the sugars real low, but that should be my choice. Like my drug of choice definitely is soda. It's diet soda though, so more of a slow burn towards illness, but a burn nonetheless. And that's the journey I'm going on. So please join me. When people see me drinking a sugar-free Red Bull and they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe you still drink that." Do I still drink it? Absolutely. I'll drink it until my ass leaks, which is something that will happen if you continuously drink sugar-free Red Bull. And I learned that the hard way on tour with GWF, but we've cut back significantly. All right. So Healey.
Oh, it does shout it out.
What?
Oh, sorry. Continue reading. It says it in like a paragraph.
Healey responded to Kennedy's remark about the Canton, Massachusetts-based chain in a post on the social platform X. She shared an image of a flag resembling the 1835 Come and Take It flag first used at the start of the Texas Revolution. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I pulled this article right before we went on air because I just kept Googling stuff while you guys were setting up. Instead of a cannon, however, Healey's flag replaces the cannon with a silhouetted Dunkin' cup. The Hill, I would love to be governor of Massachusetts and have this much time to just make up little props. The Hill reached out to HHS and Dunkin' for comment. Kennedy has worked to overhaul the food ingredient approval system, aligning with what nutrition advocates have called for years. He said in Austin that this will be the closure of the Gross loophole, referring to the generally recognized as safe policy. Kennedy criticized the Gross exemption in a 60 Minutes interview last month. He argued that the exemption allows food companies to independently verify the safety of food additives without the Food and Drug Administration's oversight. Listen, I agree. We're all killing ourselves with the food that we're eating here in America. So just let us know. I think literally just maybe like put like a bloody knife. You know how like they started putting little notes when like it was very high calories or way too much salt, like more salt than the daily value recommended. Just put a little bloody knife next to the things that are absolutely going to kill me, and then I can make the decision at Dunkin' if I so choose. That loophole was hijacked by the industry, and it was used to add thousands upon thousands of new ingredients into our food supply. Kennedy told correspondent Bill Whitaker In Europe, there's only 400 legal ingredients. This agency does not know how many ingredients there are in American food. The National Association of Manufacturers, well, all right. Oh, in Europe, there's only 400 legal ingredients. Is Europe one of the major world powers? No, baby. It's America, China, and Russia. So come at me now. I'm so far left that I'm going right now. The National
They have 400 ingredients and no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Shove it, dude.
Oh, you're so cool. I'm just so tired of it. The National Association of Manufacturers pushed back on Kennedy's claim, saying in a report released last Wednesday showing how the U.S. food and beverage supply chain produces safe, abundant, accessible, and nutritious options for Americans, LOL. They added that policy trends threaten America's safe and abundant food supply, global leadership in safe and nutritious food production, and innovation across food technologies. Yeah, I don't really want to see innovation when it comes to food. Also, obviously, our food is abundant here because we just keep chemically and scientifically creating it. So therefore, of course, it'll always be abundant. We're just making it in a petri dish. So that's really fun for us. But RFK really rubbed me the wrong way. Another thing I want to, yes.
I mean, have you seen the like actual breakdown videos guys have been doing, like to camera, where they show you just how much sugar is in like one of those extra large like Dunkin Coolata things? And
no,
it's like,
but I didn't need to see that because I was wait, which was the mayor that did it? Was it Bloomberg with the
Bloomberg put the tax on the sugary drinks and outlawed anything over like a certain
right. And so
capacity.
I don't need to I don't need to watch these little streamers redo this because I lived in Bloomberg's New York City and there was ads all in the subway with these pictures that I just looked like this. I acted like my ex was on the subway. I put my hand up and I said, I can't see that. Again, I always drink diet drinks because I'm not trying to get my sugar intake from beverages. I try to get it from, like a cheese Danish, I think is how I got it yesterday. So
it does show the like comparison 1-to-1 where it's like, this is like eating 17 donuts.
Oh no, it's insane. It's absolutely disgusting. But it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, well, raise your hand if you've ever watched Paula Deen make any recipe. So also that.
Yummy, yummy. I think the grass thing, that was a big part of what Kennedy was running on. It was a big part of the Maha movement. So him sticking to that is like...
it's pronounced... GRAS is pronounced grass?
I mean, that's just one of the ways you say it. But
okay.
Generally regarded as safe is like...
Right.
It's the reason Subway can sell it as bread here, but not in like foreign countries because it's actually mostly yoga mat.
Are they calling it bread product?
I don't even...
That's my favorite thing when they add product to it.
Bread
product.
Or...
you know what? And that's my favorite food, bread product. I had Subway on Monday. It was delish.
If it's under like a certain percentage of cocoa, they have to call it chocolate tea instead of saying like this is a like chocolate in this product.
Yum.
I just think that the whole thing goes out the window for RFK though when his department rubber stamps the glyphosate thing across the board, and it's like, bro, that's what's actually killing people.
Right.
Like, how are you rubber stamping that and you're sticking to Make America? Like, you lost, dude.
Right. And again, the food, the food, the carcinogens, that kind of thing, I do feel like that's like, we're all taking our own gamble. Again, whether it's a cigarette, a food, or like alcohol, I think we're all taking our own gamble. And I just chose the fast food route for my gamble with my body. And then quickly, I do want to go into Polymarket just to look at one congressional race that's coming up in like 2 weeks. We haven't talked about it in a while, but it's Kat Abou-Gazaleh versus Daniel Biss in Illinois. And it's interesting because I knew that Kat had been polling at 2 for quite some time. And I went back and found an article from November of last year. And at that time, in an independent poll, that Biss and Abou-Gazaleh were tied for the lead. And then, it seemed that Biss went ahead of her. And I never really looked by how many points. And Mike was like, well, check Polymarket. First, I checked the traditional polls, and traditional polls had him, ahead by 2 digits. But then, Mike swears by Polymarket. And I looked at Polymarket for the Illinois 9 Democratic primary, And it has Daniel Biss at 69%, Kat Abou-Gazaleh at 27%, which is like a pretty marked difference. And then Laura Fine is the third contender, but she's not even. I mean, she's at 5%. I don't even think she's in the picture right now. But those are the three people who you're going to see at kind of all the debates. And Mike, absolutely swears by Polymarket for political races. He says if we're looking at anything else, might as well be using dial-up, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you're not going to use a rotary phone in 2026. It's
I would love to.
I mean, it would be so nice. I'm planning on getting one for my daughter. It looks like Kat peaked at around 32%.
Okay.
Earlier this month.
Right.
Actually, that's yeah. I'm just looking at her trajectory over time. Jasmine Crockett followed a similar trend. She never got as high as that 32% number, but it was pretty similar. And as it's getting closer to the race, now you see her she's dropped down from 32% down to 27, which is like, if that keeps trending that way, that's exactly what happened to Crockett, and that's when she fell out. But I mean, she's way closer to him in recent polling than, like, I'm looking at
Kat, we're back to Kat now.
To Kat, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I'm saying she's polling way closer than the one that I've been keeping my eye on is James Fishback in Florida for the Republican gubernatorial primary. He's at 11 cents, so like he's faring like almost 33% as good as she is. And he's at 5% in the poll. So
right. And I saw some people like Kat had a couple problems in her campaign. One was like she fell asleep and didn't show up to some kind of like engagement she was supposed to show up to. And then she announced that she has narcolepsy, which I honestly just felt like you should say, like, I don't know. I appreciate the transparency, but sometimes you can be too transparent in a campaign. And I feel like she should have handled that by saying, oh my God, I got pulled into this really important meeting last minute. Because even though obviously we all are familiar with narcolepsy, like just the fact that you're asleep kind of on the job, even if it is due to narcolepsy, I feel like that's very hard. And I think that people are already going to be overly critical of someone, she's 26, as young as her. And it does feel like and no shade to any of my narcolepsy girlies out there, but it does feel like kind of a Gen Z-ish excuse, like in a world where people, where children are being exploded by bombs to say that you like fell asleep because you have narcolepsy. Like we just don't want, you can't have an illness where you're going to be falling asleep and missing things, like unfortunately.
You can't let that narcolepsy slide?
It's just like, it's just like not, I don't know. It kind of was going into the territory. And again, I think there's a lot of misinformation, and I understand narcolepsy is real. I understand Tourette's is real, but it kind of was going into the Tourette's, the guy with Tourette's saying the N-word territory, where it's like, yes, anyone with an understanding of Tourette's understands what was going on. But as you can see, it was a very hard sell for Americans, especially Black Americans. And like, we get it. So anyway, and then I think there was maybe some pushback on, there was some pushback on maybe something she said about Iran and the war. And then a woman who is very involved in, like, I'm not saying she's the head of Run for something, but she has kind of like like similar to the woman who is the head of Run for something. Someone commented, who I think is a Daniel Biss supporter, and was kind of like, a lot of problems for someone who wants to be a congressperson. And I did want to push back on that, because campaigns, like if you saw the inner workings of a campaign, campaigns are sloppy. You're doing a lot last minute, and especially someone who is not an establishment party person, I think it's going to be very hard to not have some errors. So I did want to like be on her side for that, because it's really hard, because you're just not getting, you literally don't have access to, you are elbowed out, you are pushed out of having access to the establishment staff who knows exactly how to navigate everything and knows all the players. So you are working at a disadvantage, right? And like, but it's like, if we want people who aren't part of the bureaucracy, then they're always going to be working at a bit of a disadvantage. And I know maybe your reply to that would be like, well, why was Zoran Mamdani's campaign so flawless? And I agree with you. I do think it was a flawless campaign, but your mistake there is kind of thinking of Zoran Mamdani as just like this independent outsider, when, again, not to take anything away from his win, but this was a plan that DSA had in the works for almost a decade now, looking into it. So even though Zoran Mamdani was relatively new, and he was just the vessel that the DSA used, and again, not taking anything away from him, I think he's a great guy, but this is the DSA's plan. He's just the face of it, you know? He's the guy that they put on. And, you know, he needed to be a specific type of guy to win, obviously. But that's why it was so smooth, because he really did have the backing of that. So when these people are running for Congress, again, Congress, I think, is another place where if you just kind of put a campaign together, it is possible to somehow squeak through and make a bit of a splash. Again, it's something that people accept, you know, outsiders to a little bit more. The campaign is going to have bumps in the road. Zoran Mamdani's campaign isn't the average campaign. It was a kind of once in a lifetime thing that I think we're going to see. And I don't want that to be so. Like, please, let's all aim to have a campaign as successful and smooth and flawless as his, but I just don't think that's the norm. Politics is extremely disorganized. Like I talked about last week, going to Albany, if you went to wherever decisions are made for your city or your state, you would cry. You would be very sad. You'd be like, I can't even believe anything's getting done right now. So that's, I just wanted to comment on that because that was bothering me a little bit. And, you know, just know that when a campaign is going on, especially when it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and even my campaign got to the size where it was bigger than me, you are at certain points, things are happening that don't always 100% reflect you as a candidate if you have too many wheels moving at once. Like maybe, you know, maybe an email might slip through the cracks that maybe your campaign manager okayed and not you. And there's some language that if you had written the email yourself, you wouldn't have sent it out that way. But, you know, you were in a debate, then a forum, then doing a Zoom to try and fundraise. So at a certain point, to be the best candidate you can be, you can't, as much as, you know, as the candidate you would like to, you can't be personally looking over everything yourself. And that's where you really have to have trust in your staff, that you all have a shared vision, which is why if, you know, you're working with the DSA and everyone has a really concrete shared vision, which is DSA, I think, learning a lot perhaps maybe from Republicans who have a really succinct shared vision, unlike the traditional Democrats, then everyone's going to be on the same page because we all know these are the pillars of the DSA. So everything that we say should exist within these 3-5 pillars, whatever it is. So again, I just saw that and I was like, you know, you can come for candidates for certain reasons, but I think when you see mistakes, it's because you are watching candidates who aren't part of the establishment try. So don't necessarily hold that against them, because certainly all of politics is sloppy. You're just usually not getting enough transparency to see that sloppiness. All right, let's move on to the Patreon. All hail to our amazing dictator, Christopher Fungi. Thank you so much for being a great dictator. There are, you know, at least 2 dictators, you and Donald Trump, alive and well in this country, but you're the only one we like, and you're the only one who helps support this show. Thank you so much to my capitalist pigs, and let's welcome, well, all the cuties, and especially our newest cutie of this week, Melissa Coleman. Thank you so much. If you want to help support this show, head over to patreon.com/withoutacountry. It helps to fund great things. Like Crystal and I went to Albany to the Tax the Rich takeover last week. It helps. That was a little Without a Country field trip. I'm going to be participating in more things like the Disrupt NYC panel on Tuesday. It helps to pay for subscriptions to news sources, pay editors to make additional content that we might be having. And then I am also building out a live streaming studio in my home so that I don't have to podcast, in this state. It's going to be a lot cleaner, a lot sharper, and we're building that out right now. And that certainly costs a bit of money to buy all that technology. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, we will be live streaming from my apartment, crystal clear, and then we can help take over more space on the left, because there's certainly still a lot of wide open space on the left, and we need more people in influencing, content creation, live streaming on the left, YouTube in general. All right, moving on. This is our breaking news of today. We knew this was coming. They had been reporting on it, but finally today, and this is from livenowfox.com, Freedom Plane National Tour brings founding documents to 8 cities for America 250. America 250. So some of the United States' most important historical documents are beginning a first of its kind, and not in a good way, journey as part of the country's 250th anniversary commemoration. Here's what to know about the Freedom Plane National Tour. And you're going to want to know because, when the Constitution gets destroyed, when the Constitution goes up in flames, literally, not just figuratively as it's going up now, we're going to want some answers. What it's like, where are your tax dollars going? To fly the Constitution around so people can look at it. So, big picture view, the Freedom Plane National Tour is taking several original founding era documents for the first time in history across the country for display at major museums to help commemorate America's 250th anniversary. 9 documents are leaving the vault and will be displayed together in 8 American cities from now through August. The Freedom Plane Tour was inspired in part by the American Freedom Train that toured 48 states in 1975 and 1976 as part of the country's bicentennial celebration. It carried various pieces of American history, including the original Louisiana Purchase documents, Judy Garland's dress from The Wizard of Oz, and Jesse Owens' gold medals from the 1936 Olympics. The Freedom Plane chosen to carry America's founding documents across the country is a Boeing 737. And if you want to know if your city is on the tour, Kansas City, Missouri, Atlanta, Georgia, Los Angeles, Houston, Texas, Denver, Colorado, Miami, Florida, Dearborn, Michigan, and Seattle, Washington. The exhibition will be free and open to the public at all 8 venues. To secure tickets, visit the individual museum website or contact the museums directly. And what is going to be there? The pieces that are going around are going to be the original engraving of the Declaration of Independence from 1823, the Articles of Association from 1774, George Washington's, Alexander Hamilton's, and Aaron Burr's Oaths of Allegiance from 1778, the Treaty of Paris from 1783, the secret printing of the Constitution in draft form from 1787, and the tally of votes approving the Constitution from 1787. So again, it is really cool, but number one, very nervous about having that travel around on plane. And also, it's like, what's happening? We're funneling money somehow into something that we shouldn't be funneling money in. And I looked it up because I was like, there's obviously going to be corporations somehow benefiting from this. And the money behind this tour comes from private donations and corporate sponsorships, which we don't love. And the major corporate sponsors are Boeing, Comcast, Microsoft, and Procter & Gamble. And then logistics support is provided by FedEx, which, has long been on the boycott list for ICE and MAGA funding in general. But I just don't think there should be a ton of overlap here with like corporations and the government. But this is nothing new, and so I knew when I looked this up, this was going to be happening. The tour. The tour is it's saying it's also funded through a partnership between the National Archives and Records Administration and the National Archive Foundation, but it does denote that it has significant corporate backing by the corporations that I just listed. So, especially things like Boeing, we don't love to see that. And again, very nervous about what's going to happen with these documents. Like, is there going to be something that happens and they're all destroyed? Yikes, we don't know what's happening. All right, let's go to the WACO mailbag now. If you want to send me an email, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. This one is from a WACO in Minnesota. I'm not going to say your name. I just feel like we're just not saying names to make sure everyone's safe and sound. Hi, Corinne. As a Minnesotan, I wanted to share this short piece with you from the Minnesota Women's Press, which is a local community-led feminist digital and print platform that has been running since 1985. Shout out, great year I was born. They are among my many go-to sources for local news, and this piece really resonated with me. I also like how you pointed out, you'd be like, it's been running forever. It's been running since 1985. Hell yeah, me too. Amidst the horrifying news coming out of my home state these last few months with Operation Metro Surge into our communities, this piece highlights what people and communities on the ground here are trying to do at a very base level, maintain and elevate our humanity in the face of blatant oppression and abuse of power. Also a reminder to all listening, because the major news outlets have largely moved on. ICE has not left Minnesota. They have changed tactics and are operating more covertly. Please don't forget about us. We are still resisting. Thank you. And I unfortunately don't think people are like forgetting about you, but we do have a very short attention span. Please stop watching Instagram Reels unless they're mine, of course. Please stop watching YouTube Shorts unless they're mine, of course. And because it's killing our brain. It's killing our brain. Again, I'm reading Stolen Focus right now by Johan Hari, and it is horrifying. I cried at the first chapter. It's just really bad. Our minds are so fucked beyond belief from the world that we're growing up in. And remember, I'm the last generation to kind of know what it's like to live without social media and technology at my fingertips. Was I more creative before? I don't know. All I can say is I was making a short film in my backyard with my friends every summer, and now I'm just scrolling Instagram for 18 hours a day. And I'm pretty good at like throwing my phone down, but the amount of people who have been bumping into me like a Roomba on the streets lately because they're looking down at their phone. I mean, someone literally walked into the leash that and Alfred, like I keep Alfred pretty close on the leash just because you gotta keep the little ones close. So I don't give him a lot of lead. And still, this woman literally walked into the leash today. There wasn't even that much room between us because he's a little guy. So, and then someone almost stepped on him the other day. Again, all because they were looking down at their phone. And I have a rule that when I'm walking Alfred, I don't even bring my phone with me because I want to concentrate on walking him, bonding with him. But it's bad news, guys. I don't know what's happening in your town, but in New York City, it's just everyone looking down their phone. It's really sad. But the good news is if you're maybe looking to find a romantic partner, I would say just look up. I feel like if you just look up, you might be the only one looking up, and then you might get chosen. Or you could do the choosing if you're the woman. Don't wait to be chosen. Choose for yourself. All right. So this piece from the Women's Press, let's look into it right now. This is by Amelia Gonzalez Avalos from February 25th. And it says, in a widely discussed conversation about political messaging, Anat Shenker-Osario, host of the Words to Win by podcast, offered a clear warning about how racial division operates in the United States. The purpose of dog whistling, she explained, is not simply to produce resentment toward communities of color. The deeper objective is to convince people that a shared public life is impossible. After voters accept that there is a them, they begin to doubt the existence of an us. Universal programs become suspect. Public goods appear undeserved. Government itself is reframed as a transfer from the worthy to the unworthy. Division becomes a governing strategy. And that's interesting because I was thinking this week There's a comedian named Ben Palmer who is so funny. He's actually Danny Palmer, my friend, who you heard me talk about. It's his brother.
Palmer Trolls, right?
Yeah, it's Palmer Trolls. And so, like, when we're talking about can comedians make it like a difference, I think he is a comedian who really is making a difference. He's kind of like in many ways, I was going to say a political Borat, but Borat was also political. He's just really good at what he does, and he trolls a lot of people, and he gets himself into political spaces, and he's just doing a lot of great things. And so one of the things he did recently as his prank is he set up basically a fake like ICE hotline where people can call and report things, to try and get people deported. And the people who have been calling in have been absolutely insane. Like someone called on like a preschooler, someone called on someone who worked at like a Publix, I think, like truly the kinds of people who are the core of our communities. It
was a teacher who called about the kindergartner, right?
Yeah, that's right. I had repressed that part. But yeah, it's really insane. But I think he's doing great work. He's so smart, and he's kind of unassuming, which I think makes it great. Like he just looks kind of like a regular guy, and I mean that in the nicest way. I love him. I've done shows with him. Obviously, I know him through Danny, but he's just really, really great. I mean, I'm not the first to say this. He has almost 500,000 followers on Instagram, if not more by now. And but he's doing really good stuff. And it's interesting because in the age of misinformation, I guess you could say maybe he's playing into that, but he's playing into that in a good way, in a way to distract people who would be doing bad stuff online, kind of putting them on a detour. So I think it's a positive form of possible misinformation. And and like the people, you listen to the people calling his fake ICE hotline, and I think there's a big portion of Americans, and we are the majority, who are absolutely horrified at what human beings are doing to other human beings. But I think there's also a large group of people who are like, well, I'm white, and I don't really deal a lot with people who don't look like me. And when I do, it's an inconvenience to me. And I don't really care about the logistics of whether or not these people are documented, undocumented, American citizens, not American citizens. If they're brown and they're getting deported, I'm happy about that. And I really do think there is a considerable group of Americans who are like, well, anyone who's brown and getting out, this is good for me. I really do believe that. And that kind of last paragraph in this Minnesota Women's Press article just reminded me of that. And it's super sad. And I think it's also super untrue, because it's like after they come for the brown people, who do you think they're coming from? Who are they already coming for, and you just don't really see it? Broke white people. It's like they're coming for you, okay? They're coming for all of us who aren't them. Don't make me quote the famous like Holocaust poem again. It's like they said it was coming for me and I didn't say anything, and then finally they came for me and I had no one left to stand up for me. I'm paraphrasing, but we all know that. We learned that in the 4th grade. This is the division that the federal government attempted to test with Operation Metro Surge, the historic mass deployment of federal immigration officers that separated families, eroded constitutional rights, and destabilized neighborhoods, workplaces, schools, and our public places. Yet alongside the fear, another story is unfolding. Communities have not only objected to enforcement practices, but they are asserting that collective responsibility is still possible and that ordinary residents can act together in defense of one another. In the days after the election, despair was tangible. Many people felt that decisions made far away had sealed their future. Isolation would have been understandable. Instead, tens of thousands moved toward one another. Project Monarcha was built through a coalition of workers, students, people of faith, parents, clergy, business owners, teachers, caregivers, and young people. Together, Undos, Minnesota's Monarcha has trained more than 40,000 everyday Minnesotans as neighborhood protectors and constitutional observers, showcasing how to be upstanders. Today, there are more than 7,000 committed leaders holding roles as nonviolent responders, leading mutual aid networks, supporting immigrants at the workplace and in schools, taking part in systems change committees, or updating training to reflect the most recent learnings from the ground. From this group, Monarcha now has a deep bench of 50 trainers. In February 2025, At Central Lutheran Church, more than 2,000 residents crowded into pews and hallways for the first mass constitutional observer training. The idea is straightforward. When the state exercises authority in public, the public has the right to watch. Observers learn to record interactions, reduce escalation, and insist on transparency. What appears modest on paper proves extraordinary in practice. People who once believed politics was reserved for professionals discover that embodying the First Amendment is a form of leadership. A person who might never have imagined facing federal agents finds that they can hold a camera and blow a whistle. A neighbor who arrives alone leaves with 10 phone numbers of new allies. Courage becomes social rather than individual. And because other organizations have adopted the model, the capacity has spread far beyond a single network. I write this during African American Heritage Month. It is impossible to miss where this moral imagination comes from. The immigration justice movement stands within traditions forged by Black freedom struggles that insist dignity is inherent and cannot be granted or withdrawn by government. Minnesota also carries the leadership of the Black Lives Matter movement. The mobilizations after the murder of George Floyd left us networks, skills, and expectations about participation. Then, as now, Minnesotans learned how quickly strangers can become partners, and how rapidly civic life can reorganize itself when conscience or a pandemic demands it. The muscle built in those years is flexing and growing again, now directed toward the defense of immigrants and the preservation of constitutional norms. For many organizers, academic research on civil resistance has reinforced the belief that participation matters. Studies associated with Erica Chenoweth are read widely in community meetings and strategy sessions. The conclusion that relatively small but committed portions of a population can destabilize entrenched authority helps people overcome paralysis. It suggests that ordinary residents possess more influence than they are usually encouraged to imagine. And of course, there's way more of us than there are of them. I know earlier here we're talking about us versus them. And, I'm going to push back on the fact that there is no them. There is a them. The them is corporations, establishment, politicians, billionaires. Like, there is a them. It's just not the them that you've been convinced it is. A them exists, but it's not Black people. It's not brown people. It's not immigrants. It's not these groups. The same scholarship also implies something more complicated. Numbers matter most when they extend across institutions and when they create fractures among those who administer power. Participation must be durable. It must reach workplaces, congregations, professional associations, and civic leadership. It must alter calculations about what will happen tomorrow, not simply express outrage today. Immigrant families understand this distinction with painful clarity. Immediate solidarity offers relief, but long-term safety depends on decisions from those who have power. Who will refuse cooperation? Which officials will intervene? Will careers suffer for enabling harm? Will ballots translate memory into accountability? These questions are practical and they point toward leverage. Authoritarian politics can often withstand protest. What it cannot easily withstand, however, is loss. Loss of legitimacy, of alliances, of economic partnership, loss of electoral security. When those risks become real, conditions can be changed. The central challenge for Minnesotans today is to transform moral energy into consequences that institutions cannot ignore. And I know this is specifically about Minnesota, but I think this is applicable to so many places, both if we're going state by state or the country as a whole, right? That work requires organizing beyond those who are already convinced. And that's why I rolled out the red carpet at the beginning of this episode, okay? If you're on the fence, let us convince you. It involves neighbors who feel uncertain, workers who fear instability, residents who have been taught that someone else's exclusion guarantees their own safety. Organizing in this environment demands patience and rigor. It asks movements to widen the circle without abandoning principle. I love that sentence. Well, let's widen the circle without abandoning principle. I don't think welcoming other people into a movement, and I know everything is a movement these days. I swear to God, it's just everything. We're all starting a movement. We're all starting a movement. But the problem is we're all trying to start our own niche movements and convince everyone that our own niche movement is the best, when really we need a much wider as I said, wider movement that welcomes many more people. Still, movements can be caricatured or dismissed. They can be praised for passion while being denied authority. If the present wave of organizing is to do more than repeat earlier cycles of emergency and exhaustion, it must continue its evolution toward majority power. Durable organizations must grow, leaders must continue to emerge, electoral capacity must develop alongside rapid response, targets must be clear, outcomes must be measurable. What is being defended in Minnesota is larger than any policy. The question is whether a multiracial democracy can imagine itself as a shared project. The answer offered by dog whistle politics is no. The answer offered by organizing is that people are building an us anyway, patiently, visibly, and with increasing strength. Demonstrations declare conviction. Majorities determine what happens next. Minnesotans successfully expose the bargain offered to them. Surrender someone else's rights in exchange for the illusion of personal security. Increasingly, that trade is being rejected. Trading a neighbor's liberty for the appearance of order does not produce safety. It corrodes the constitutional ground everyone stands on. What begins as an exception inevitably becomes a precedent. Yeah, it becomes the norm. As participation widens, safety no longer depends on individual courage. It becomes collective. It lowers the cost of public engagement and normalizes democratic defense. When enough people see themselves inside the we, repression becomes politically costly. Normalization, however, is only the beginning. The next step is the deliberate creation of consequences. Electoral party structures must answer to working families rather than corporate interests. If institutions, including the DFL, expect loyalty from voters, they must be willing to reject the corporate elites that have enabled centuries of racial and economic inequality to persist. Addressing these inequalities is essential for a high-functioning democracy. Minnesota can lead the way in enacting, at last, the deep structural reforms we need in immigration, healthcare, education, housing, and more, while redirecting resources away from billions of dollars spent on punitive ICE enforcement. Only by ensuring that the rights, dignity, and security of every community member is protected can democracy fulfill its promise. If working families don't experience the improvement of their material conditions, history will demand a harsher reckoning, and the next wave of authoritarian power will strike with even greater force. That is such a great piece. Is just a reminder of why I really love to read local news sources. So thank you so much for sending that to the WACO inbox. Really appreciate it. And something I found as kind of a companion piece to that is there's a Substack that I discovered this week called Project Saltbox. If you're in Maryland or, Baltimore area, perhaps, I don't know how widely it is, but it's a Substack basically by, it's seemingly mostly Baltimore residents, and they're tracking ICE. And so you can go to the Substack. I subscribed. There's like a free subscription I subscribed for Without a Country. But one of the things that they're doing, and I know it seems crazy that like we're kind of going to Substacks now, but Substack is a real theme for this week because there has been some pretty good reporting done on Substack, and these are more by like local watch groups, individual journalists, not just like a guy. Again, like we still have to be very careful about where we're getting our news sources from. But there is a story that is one of our major stories this week about the attack on Iran, and the source for many articles that have now spread to pretty major media outlets was a Substack by this guy, Jonathan Larson, who has done a lot of reporting for political shows you know and love, like I think Rachel Maddow and stuff. We'll go over that in a moment, though. So this is from the Project Saltbox Substack, and if you're someone who's really interested in tracking ICE, or if you're in Maryland, I highly recommend you subscribing to that as a way to help your friends, neighbors, maybe yourself. I don't know. ICE is currently transporting approximately 100 vehicles from Minneapolis to its newly acquired warehouse in Williamsport, Maryland. This is the latest sign that ICE is expanding its most aggressive enforcement campaign in recent memory to the mid-Atlantic region. The warehouse, located at 16220 Wright Road, was purchased by DHS earlier this year with plans to convert it into a detention center to hold up to 1,500 people. Meanwhile, another source has shared that approximately 90 unmarked vehicles are being moved from downtown Baltimore to an unknown location by Sunday, March 1st. So we'll see updates if that happens.
Who owned that warehouse before DHS bought it at what I'm sure is well above market value?
I don't know. Do you have the answer, Mike?
No, I've noticed that it has been a thing that has come up with other DHS projects where it was like relatively worthless property that was bought up by DHS to be used as a quote unquote ICE detention center. And it was like, 130, 140, sometimes even, 300% markup on fair market value. And they happen to all be bought from Trump donors.
Yeah. I mean, let's see if we can look. I mean, is this warehouse on Zillow, Maryland? Who owns I don't know if I can find quickly enough on air, but you can continue looking into it from that because the exact address is on there. The vehicle transfer comes just a week after ICE filed a federal solicitation to nearby triple its detainee capacity in the Baltimore region. The vehicle movement may be the first documented instance of ICE moving equipment from an active surge operation to an emerging one. And if you're interested in that, but you don't want to subscribe to the Substack, you can also follow them on Instagram at Project Saltbox, all spelled out, for more information. All right, quick palate cleanser. Yes.
Is it possible that it's this? Was it in Hagerstown? Because I'm seeing a bunch of stuff here. Attorney General Brown files lawsuit to stop construction of Hagersfield property. DHS buys warehouse in Maryland to possibly hold.
No, it's Williamsport, right?
Williamsport, okay.
I think so. So that would be 21795 is the zip there. And it's Washington County. Again.
Yeah, it says this is unearthed by Project Saltbox, so I'm assuming this is the same one. But it seems like they are now, it seems like the Attorney General is fighting that purchase that happened back earlier this year.
Good. But yeah, I just thought that was a good companion piece. And again, it's hard because there are kind of independent reporters and pieces and substacks where some good information is coming, but I can't speak enough about how much information is also being shared in these kind of non-traditional ways. So we just got to be very, very careful about everything. Right. So this is also from the WACO mailbag. Again, this is a bit of a palate cleanser just for a moment because, you need something light in the midst of all this horror. Hi from Montreal, not a political issue, but given the subject of this article, I and many others, I'm sure, would love to hear from you on this as a person of authority on the Spice Girls, but more importantly, a celebrity. And we're going to use that real loosely. I would say a low-level internet celebrity. You must comment on this issue to stay in the public's good graces. Unless your answers don't satisfy everyone's idea of you, then too bad. Kidding aside, I'm on the fence about whose side to be on here. The Spice business has the exact same sounding name as the girl group, but I also don't think there's a lot of harm done there since the Spice Girls are so well known. CTV, which is the Canadian television network, is the only one reporting on it. But the topic being this lightweight compared to most headlines, I don't think it's that big of a deal. This is from Adam, and he's calling this Spicegate. I just thought, since I have been being contacted a lot by Spice Girls fans recently, I wanted to cover this. It says Spice Girls lawyers, and this is from March 1st, threatened to sue Canadian entrepreneur over brand name. A young Ottawa entrepreneur is being forced to change the name of her company after lawyers for the supergroup Spice Girls threatened to sue her for trademark infringement. Lily Bond, 22, started her own line of food seasoning and it's called Spice Girls, but it's SPYCEGIRLZ 9 years ago. She will now have to abandon the name, just as major grocery stores across Canada have expressed interest in carrying the product. So 9 years ago, so she was very young. She was a teen when she started that. I'm guessing, unless they're saying she was 22. At the age of 13. So in 2017, at the age of 13, Bond started selling her taco spice at farmers markets as a way to earn extra money to buy a laptop for school. Bond and her mother became regular fixtures at local markets where customers regularly referred to the duo as the Spice Girls. The name stuck. I'm going to stop right there and say, when you're selling at farmers markets, you can call your product whatever you want. So if you want to call it Spice, you can call it... You can call it Amazon.com Disney Plus MGM when you're selling at a farmer's market. But the problem is, like, it's almost, I would say the real issue here is that this young woman didn't believe in herself enough, right? When we start a company, even if it's only for a little side cash, we should always start it, the same way you should go into a marriage. You should always go into a marriage wanting a prenup, because you should always go into a marriage imagining that you are going to become a multi-millionaire, super successful icon in that marriage, because that marriage is going to lift you up and support you so much. So you need to sign a prenup, baby. I know a lot of people go into marriages and they're like, I don't have anything anyway. It doesn't matter. Well, that's a loser's attitude, okay? And we're in America. We got a winner's attitude for now until we start losing real hardcore. We're losing a little bit now, but I think that's the problem here. Like, and I don't expect a 13-year-old to know, but like a mom should probably know that before you got to do some clearances before you start a brand. This is like starting a brand or a company 101. So like, I'm not saying like I kind of am on the Spice Girls lawyer side on this one. I don't know if you guys are going to love that. I'm not on the fan of like fighting a 22-year-old entrepreneur, but like you can't just call something Spice Girls. Like even if you spell it a little bit differently, I kind of like, doesn't everyone know this? And again, I understand how it happened, seeing the pathway, but you got to plan for success at all levels. And, also I don't know what to say, or get some kind of clearance. I don't know. To differentiate her brand from the super group, Bond replaced the I in Spice with a Y and put a Z at the end of girls.
Oh, that's different enough.
It's not. Which means that she was literally just selling the products at the farmer's market as just straight up Spice Girls. That's not. I don't know. You could have fudged it a little bit. There was a cult following and the lines just started growing and growing. Then grocery stores started carrying, Bond told CTV News. When what started as a side hustle turned into a full-time job after she graduated from high school. Although she's taking business management at the University of Ottawa, Bond spends more time mixing ingredients in a commercial kitchen and dealing with inventory than she does in classes. Well, now you're paying for it, because I guess you should have been paying attention in those classes. Again, like, just if you just look at it, like, this is so like on the nose that you should, if you're starting a business, unfortunately there are growing pains, and girl, I feel you. Starting a business is back-breaking work, but I am on the side of the Spice Girls lawyer. This is just too close. And this is like pretty common knowledge. Like, I think even when I was 13, I might have known that you can't just call something Spice Girls. In January 2022, Bond applied to Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada to trademark Spice Girls seasonings. It was approved in October 2023, which is crazy. But I don't know what's going on in Canada that they approved that, because they're experts. They should be seeing that there's going to be a problem. But less than 3 months after getting federal approval, the Spice Girls made it clear what they really, really want. I would actually then maybe take it up with the Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada, because like, why are you approving things that you shouldn't be approving? How did they even know about us? In a letter sent by courier, lawyers from the Ottawa law firm Smart and Bigger notified Bond that their clients, Spice Girls, were opposing her trademark application for her seasonings. They were an international pop group. How did they even know about us, Bond said, adding that the band's legal action left her confused. I don't think it was like the Spice Girls going through it, and they have a team, and I'm sure the team has like Google alerts on with different spellings of Spice Girls, and you came up that way, I'm guessing. They built a brand around female empowerment. I thought it was about women supporting women. Okay, that doesn't mean that they have to co-sign your taco seasoning. Now we're getting loosey-goosey here, right? You made a mistake. Unfortunately, you're going to make a mistake when you start a business. I've made many of them. This is just, it happens. And hopefully it will just kind of be like a cease and desist. But yeah, it's going to cost you a lot of money if you already package these things. The letter dated January 29th, 2024 states that the British female pop group has sold more than 105 million records worldwide, making them the best-selling female group of all time and the most successful British pop act since the Beatles. The lawyer said that Bond's Spice Girls brand is likely to lead the average Canadian consumer to mistakenly believe that your goods are somehow associated with our clients. It was also noted that the term Spice Girls is identical in sound to the name of the pop group. Right. Like, it's like you just changed 2 letters, but when you say it, it's just still Spice Girls, which what I would agree is confusing. In order for our client to preserve and protect the validity and value of its trademark, Smart and Bigger demanded that Bond withdraw her trademark and destroy all the articles, packaging, or other matter in your possession with the labels. And that's going to cost you a lot, and that does suck. If there was no immediate compliance, the lawyers for the Spice Girls threatened to commence legal and opposition proceedings. I mean, I think if you want to like negotiate, maybe what I would say if I was being nice is like, we allow you to sell the goods that have been packaged so far, but once that supply is done, then you must change your branding. That would be a nice negotiation that I would bring on, to the table if I was on the team and I wanted to play nice. I think that's fair. Bond is not a Spice Girls fan. Well, now you're just being a cunt. Now you're just being a cunt. She prefers AC/DC, and as the hard rockers would sing, she's got spunk. I don't love, like, earlier in the article being like the Spice Girls we're supposed to be about women supporting women. And then later in the article, you say that you prefer a band that's all dudes and like old dudes for that matter. So, all right. Bond found out it's giving young female comic energy, which is very pick me. So as an elder female comedian, I push back on that. Bond found out that despite protecting their trademark on hundreds of items from cosmetics to clothes to video cameras and games to shoes and pens, the Spice Girls did not list seasonings as a protected good. All right, that's interesting. Unwilling to give up nearly a decade of work without a fight, Bond filed a Section 45 proceeding to force the pop icons to defend their trademark categories in Canada. I didn't want to be timid and just kind of take it and move on, said Bond, who has learned to advocate for herself through entrepreneurship. And I agree. Like, you want to do anything possible not to have to repackage these goods, because you're going to be taking it a loss. Since receiving the cease and desist letter in 2024, the pressure on Bond has grown. Her product line has expanded beyond taco spice to include Montreal steak, Greek, and Sunday dinner seasonings. Spice Girls is now in 150 Ontario grocery stores, including Farm Boy and Longo's. Bond says her spices are bringing in more than $100,000, and she can't afford to hire a lawyer to take on a pop group with deep pockets in a protracted fight. I was representing myself, and I kind of had to make the decision, do I continue with this battle or do I continue putting it into operations? Bond says she's exhausted after navigating intellectual property legal matters on her own for nearly a year. And then also, if you're so adamant about not being a Spice Girls fan, why the fuck would you call your brand Spice Girls? That doesn't even make, like, why? Again, like, now you're just being rude. She has made the decision to give up the trademark fight so she can focus on growing the company. I'm just going to have to keep my head held high and find another name. She also has to get rid of 10,000 packages of Spice Girls seasonings before she can relaunch under a new name that is yet to be determined. Honestly, that's less. 10,000 packages is less bad than I thought it was going to be. Obviously still a hit. But again, like, when you start a business, like, you're going to have things like this happen. And like, it would be one thing if she called it like Zigga Zig Ah or something, but like, she literally called it Spice Girls. It's hard to be on this girl's side. Again, I'm going to have empathy because she started when she was 13. Like, that I'm going to blame on mom. And again, on just not thinking that some side hustle that you have at a farmer's market is going to become $100,000 plus company. But I don't know, rename it and then maybe go on bring it to the sharks, and then see if you can recoup the funding that way. See if you can find an investor to help you recoup this loss that you're experiencing. I think that's the best way to do it instead of having to eat all that yourself. But Adam, thank you so much for sending that in.
Spice to eat.
It's a lot of spice to eat.
But like, all right, do you think she'll be able to, when she does relaunch, like, how like Pearl River for a while was like formerly Aunt Jemima? You know what I mean? Like, is she going to be able to be like, hey, this is still the spice you have been buying for years, but we had to do new packaging? Is she going to be able to reference the brand's history, or is it like you're totally screwed?
I don't know. I was thinking about that. But also, I think like when you look at the packaging, she has really distinct packaging. The visuals are really distinct. So I think if you keep the font the same, and I would probably name it something that starts with an S, like similar, and maybe spice, like, try to keep the name as similar as possible, but outside of, where you're going to get sued or a cease and desist.
Kurt in the chat said, should have called it Spicy Gals.
Would that have been enough?
I don't know.
Right. Again, and like it also has like a cartoon version of her on it. So again, the packaging is kind of cartoonish and fun. And I think that if you keep the font the same, the cartoon of you the same, that it's enough that if people have bought it in the past and like it, that will be enough. But again, it's really hard for me to have too much sympathy for this, girl. It's pretty known that you can't just name something else that is popular. Like, we kind of know that just as a group, So, and again, especially when you don't even, I would have more empathy if she was like, I'm a huge Spice Girls fan and it was my dream, but like she just straight up threw them under the bus. So now we're definitely not on your side. All right, this last WACO mailbag is one of the main, is like a big, not the main story, but one of the big stories that we wanted to go over this week anyway. And WACO Gabrielle sent in an article that Mike and I really liked, because all the articles I was finding were quite complex, like from Wall Street Journal and stuff. But this is from Fox 59, so God bless. We're using small words, and it's a little bit more understandable. It says, "Hi, Corinne, I think she means long time WACO and GWF listener here, and also a Hoosier. I wanted to send you this article that gives a little update about what BlackRock and good old Indiana is up to. I feel that this article, compared to a few others I read, explains more about why AES is being bought out." And can you remind me, Mike, of what AES stands for?
I believe it's Applied Energy Services.
Right. And so it's, as I explained it, it's like Con Ed or PSE&G, but for that area, for Indiana. And like what, Ohio, I think, is in there too.
Well, I know Ohio is one of the grids that AES is in charge of. Yeah.
And so that, because like they kept shortening AES, and I was like, I don't know what AES is, and I felt dumb, and I was like, oh, it's because it's local, and that's why in our area we don't have this.
BPNL is Ohio, it looks like, and AES is South America Andes region.
Okay.
So they're operating in the Andes, and then there was something about them in the country of Georgia as well.
Oh, interesting.
In like the 90s, I believe. They wanted Tbilisi.
Okay.
I believe was the location.
So this is out of Indianapolis. A consortium has agreed to purchase AES, Indiana, and Ohio, according to a news release, transitioning the company to a private one. Officials said they believe this will provide the utility company with enhanced financial flexibility in the future. According to a news release, a consortium led by Global Infrastructure Partners and EQT is expected to acquire AES for $15 per share in cash. The release states that this represents a total equity value of $10.7 billion and an enterprise value of around $33.4 billion. The consortium is made up of the following entities: Global Infrastructure Partners as part of BlackRock, EQT Infrastructure, VI Fund, the following co-underwriters: California Public Employees Retirement System and Qatar Investment Authority. This transaction will better position AES to drive long-term growth across its business units, the release said, including regulated electric utilities and competitive clean energy in the U.S. and critical energy infrastructure assets in Latin America. With the support of the consortium, AES will have improved access to capital to invest in critical energy infrastructure assets, deliver reliable energy solutions for its customers, and create long-term value for all stakeholders, including its workforce and local communities, the release continued. Officials said AES Indiana and AES Ohio will remain locally operated and managed regulated utilities. The release said the company is expected to benefit from enhanced financial flexibility under private ownership. Okay. The transaction was unanimously approved by AES's board of directors. No one you can trust less than a board of directors, let me tell you, and is expected to close in late 2026 or early 2027. In a statement provided to Fox 59 CBS 4 from AES, officials said, quote, "This transaction will deliver compelling near-term value to stockholders and better position AES to drive sustained growth across its business units, allowing the company to deliver reliable energy solutions for customers and create long-term value for other stakeholders, including its workforce and local communities." U.S. Representative Andre Carson, Democrat from Indiana District 7, said in a statement that he is concerned that the move toward private ownership will hurt Hoosiers. Private firms having a stake in public utilities and essential service will put profits over people, Carson said. "I've worked in Congress to lower utility costs, but the Trump administration is constantly undermining our efforts by prioritizing corporate interests. Indianapolis families are already facing higher costs for healthcare, groceries, and housing. The last thing they need is another increase in their utility bills." Indiana State Representative Cherish Pryor, Democrat Indianapolis, said in a statement that AES being sold to private equity will only make it worse, as per usual. Private equity firms are all about profit. We've seen what happens when these firms take over nursing homes and hospitals, the statement read. They aggressively cut services, infrastructure, investment, and reduce staff, resulting in worse outcomes for the consumer. Keep in mind that they're buying AES as part of the AI boom. BlackRock invests heavily in coal, data centers, and now they are buying the energy grids. That's probably the most important sentence in this article. Kerwin Olson, the executive director of Citizens Action Coalition, also criticized the announcement. "We've really lost sight of our public utilities that used to be rooted in the community. This is a contract, if you will, between the state and these utilities to be good community partners," said Olson. "Here we are looking at, I think, the world's largest private equity firm owning our public utility here in Indianapolis, and that's sad." Jerry Hayes, a senior lecturer at the IU Kelley School of Business, also weighed in on the issue and how it could affect local consumers. What we don't know is what kind of pull are they trying to get from the AI companies versus what amount of power they're going to hold back for the consumers. And then, of course, infrastructure upgrades, said Hayes. This could potentially not be a great situation for consumers. Yeah, potentially. In a statement, State Treasurer Daniel Ellicott criticized the sale of AES Indiana to BlackRock. Quote, "After learning the news yesterday of the reported deal between AES Corporation and the consortium consisting of BlackRock, EQT, the Qatari Investment Authority, and CalPERS, I have spent the last 24 hours gathering information and am increasingly worried by this potential deal and the impact it will have on Hoosiers in central Indiana. As treasurer, I took actions to protect Hoosier public servants from BlackRock's ESG decisions. I'm also extremely concerned by the presence of the CalPERS, the California Pension Fund, and the influence they'll have over the lives of Hoosiers. Recently, CalPERS lost over $300 million of retiree money, and their mismanagement is now the subject of a congressional probe. The Qatari Investment Authority has no known ties to Hamas. This fundamentally misaligns with Hoosier values. Hoosiers deserve answers. Hoosiers need to be guaranteed that they will not face harm at a time when affordability is one of the most important issues facing all of us. I hope that the federal regulators that are in charge of reviewing and approving this merger will complete a full review and give Hoosiers complete transparency on the terms of this deal. Otherwise, and until then, I cannot support this deal." And that's from, again, Indiana State Treasurer Daniel Elliott. I think I said Ellicott. It's Elliott. Sorry, I'm jacked up on Celsius here. All right. Well, that's wild. Mike, I know this is one of your favorite topics. Do you have a comment for the wackos?
I mean, look, if we're in a situation where Trump is talking about banning private equity from buying private homes, why are we in a situation where private equity is able to buy power grids, right? Like that.
Oh yeah, it's not good.
It's very concerning. So, yeah, I don't know. I hate any kind of profit motive being involved in anything that's like a essential service, right? Like the fact that like I'm dealing with it this week because my wife is dealing with a broken arm and just like needing to go get a referral to see a specialist. It's like if these weren't all profit driven companies, this would all be so much easier. But it's like the hassle and the rigmarole that goes into dealing with one of these is like, you know, it's baked into people not getting the services that they depend on. So
here.
Yeah, I don't know. Very concerning. I don't think any of those people should be involved. But ultimately, it's like how much of BlackRock is tied into, you know, the everything, right? The S&P 500, right, which is really just 8 companies at this point that are all AI driven. It's like it. You know, we were talking about it last week off air. I think that everything in the future is going to come down to watts, wafers, and weapons. So it's like if 1/3 of the, you know, the next economy for, you know, the same way oil is so important for the last 100 years, I think watts and wafers are going to be as important for at least the next quarter century. So it's like, you know, if these companies depend on you know, constant power to keep upgrading these AIs to where they can eventually become profitable, right? Like, I think we talked about this on air a bit ago. Like, OpenAI needs to something like 7,000x their revenue in the next 18 months just to serve the debt that they've incurred, right? So it's like all these companies are going to need to seriously scale. And we're already seeing such a massive strain being put on these power grids. How long before these companies make the decision that it's best for us to keep feeding these AI companies versus making sure that there's power for you and your kids, you know? So I don't like those profit motives being so tied into something that's such a, you know, like that's an absolutely vital part of stability in American life that should not be, you know, that should not have a line item in a budget. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't be able to, like they talked about in Fight Club, right? That idea of like they're only going to do a recall on a product if they figure the gross like a settlement would be more than the cost of the recall, right? People shouldn't be making decisions like that around the power grid.
No, certainly not. Oh boy. Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about private ownership on this show and how it's you know, rarely if ever a good thing.
Well, I mean, it's better than collectivism, but you know, Blaze14ZX pointed out Canada's Shark Tank is under the name of Dragon's Den.
Oh, I didn't even know.
That's fun.
I've never heard of that. I didn't know Canada had Shark Tank, but Dragon's Den sounds fun as hell.
I'd rather go to the Dragon's Den than the Shark Tank any day.
I would, but it makes sense that America is Shark Tank. Dragon. All right, so bring it to Dragon's Den. Do they have as much money on the line, or is it like a little? Yeah, feels
it's
like
Canada.
Feels like it would be a little lower budget.
Come on. Oh, you need a couple loonies and toonies then. Oh, all right.
Feels like it would be a little lower budget.
Yeah, sure. Hey, what do you need? I mean, the woman's doing 100,000 in sales. That's massive for a Dragon's Den company.
Right. I know they would laugh at her in America, but on Dragon's Den, she might be the number one dragon.
Dragons, I've come to get 50,000.
Why does she have a British accent?
I don't know. I'm assuming she's a newbie.
Oh boy. All right. Let's move on. We haven't done a municipal piece because the nation has been falling apart, but I found a really good one that came across my desk. And I guess I mean my thumb this week. Convicted Louisiana Mayor Misty Roberts sought to ban teen romance rumors, purported rehab stints in rape trial court documents. This is from Mike's favorite news source, the New York Post. And I mean, what a perfect name for a mayor who is raping teens.
I had a New York Post while reading this story.
Ew. Oh, she is hot.
Legitimately hot.
Yeah, she's like legitimately hot. And of course her name is like Misty Roberts. Like it doesn't even feel like a real name, but you know, I'm obsessed with Mayor news. Disturbing rumors of Louisiana ex-mayor Misty Roberts having illicit relationships with teenage boys, plural, and stints in rehab had already dogged the disgraced leader before she landed in court for betting her son's 16-year-old friend, according to shocking court documents. Is it shocking in this day and age? Nothing shocks me anymore. The small town gossip was apparently damaging enough that Roberts' lawyers fought to ban it from her trial on sex crime charges, in which she was swiftly found guilty Tuesday of having sex with her son's best friend. That's so hack. The motion sought to block any testimony concerning rumors or suggestions of inappropriate behavior between Ms. Roberts and any members, players, or persons otherwise associated with the local Beauregard High School baseball team from being admissible at the trial. And you know, obviously, all the pics are all blurred out because the other people involved are minors, but Misty is hot with a capital H. It wasn't immediately clear if or how the judge had decided on the defense's requests in that motion, which also sought to ban any of the accused predators' medical records, including any testimony concerning Ms. Roberts going to rehabilitation or seeking rehabilitation before or after the time of the allegations. The 43-year-old mother of two was found guilty Tuesday on charges of carnal knowledge of a juvenile and indecent behavior with a juvenile about 2 years after she was caught raping the teen boy at a booze-fueled pool party for her own son's birthday. The then mayor, clad for the occasion in an orange bikini, flirted openly with the teen and posed for creepy photos with him during the party before luring him to the home's, quote, bonus room, stripping and having sex with the boy, according to court docs and witness testimony. Court records.
The bone us room.
Oh my God. You know, and this is why we can't fire Mike even when he says MAGA stuff. Court records say Roberts' own son and nephew allegedly took footage of the lewd scene, evidence that her lawyers also demanded be kept out of the courtroom, seemingly out of fear that it might stir up more concerns about the ex-leader's behaviors. This is so wild. Any testimony concerning any claim or suggestion that any person's finally had proof of Ms. Roberts' allegedly inappropriate behavior after obtaining video of the incident, thus suggesting the occurrence of prior inappropriate conduct, should be inadmissible, the motion states. That in legalese, that's a way of saying this old bitch has fucked minors before. Among the when I say old bitch, I say it with love because I'm 3 years behind her and she looks great. Among the other topics the defense sought to keep out of trial included the accused predator's former marriage to Duncan Clanton, to whom she reportedly sent frantic and potentially incriminating texts following the pool party, including one that read, hold on to your knickers, girls, I fucked up, as well as any details surrounding the couple's divorce. Like, at what, like, I fucked up, like, what? What? Clanton could not be reached for comment. No, you don't say. New details obtained by the post from court docs also reveal that Roberts, who witnesses have testified was drinking heavily on the night of the pool party, wanted to blame the romp on being too boozed up. Roberts will introduce testimony and evidence of her intoxication/impaired condition, medication, alcohol, involuntary, voluntary at the time of the alleged offenses, and that as such, she is exempt from criminal responsibility in this case, a defense motion filed on May 9th states. It's unclear whether Roberts has ever claimed that she was involuntarily intoxicated on the night in question or if she had taken drugs. Roberts' attorneys did not respond to requests for comment. Number one, why was there alcohol at a 16-year-old's party where the mom is present? And so she's obviously trying to be like the fun mom. And then number two, when they say rape, I want to know if they mean like she physically forced him or if we're just saying rape because he's a minor. Of course, it's rape, like, but it's just different because it's like, are we talking like rape, like, or are we talking statutory rape? And I think this is important for fans of Dawson's Creek who watched Pacey have an affair with Tamara.
I mean, it's a 16-year-old boy. We know he could easily, a 16-year-old young man could easily overpower pretty much any woman in her 40s, other than maybe Ronda Rousey or Gina Carano.
I don't think that's true. There's plenty of scrawny 16-year-olds.
I'm telling you, I would not want to fight a 16-year-old, and I fight weekly.
Okay,
right? Like,
so Mike's on the side of the rapist.
I'm saying
New York Post. New York Post.
I'm saying that. Listen, if they're,
I just don't know. Like, I don't care how much. Like, I've been blackout drunk. I've never wanted to have sex with a 16-year-old boy. Ew. Yuck.
I mean,
yuck.
There's also allegations that a DoorDash driver delivered Plan B after the encounter.
Oh, right. Yeah, I can't believe Post didn't include that. I did see that on something else.
And there was text messages between her and the quote unquote victim's mother.
What's the quote unquote?
Because
for?
I'm Corinne.
Because you're saying he's not a. Are you trying to imply that he's not a victim?
I'm saying that every single kid I know who's my age watched American Pie and was like, "Yeah, I would bang Jennifer Coolidge too." What are we talking about?
I understand,
She's hot.
I feel like
He's
this is
16.
This is a bit of a hack narrative that I thought we've gotten past as a society.
We haven't. For dudes, we haven't.
But I think this is still going to, whether or not he realizes now, I think this is going to negatively affect his life in the future and the way he views sexuality and relationships a bit. I think it's not good. I think it's not good.
I mean, yeah, obviously any kid who's getting laid like that in high school, it's going to mess you up down the road. But that's like, what
but your argument is because things are never going to be that good again.
Kinda, yeah. It's like you think honestly, you're literally living the graduate fantasy. Like that's not a realistic expectation.
I know,
life.
but The Graduate came out in like the 70s, Mike. There's a lot of films that came out with minors fucking adults. Almost Famous is an entire movie that I watched as a young girl, where you're watching it and you're like, oh my god, this is the dream, and then you realize like, oh no, this is actually crazy. Like read I'm With the Band by Pamela DeBar. And, this is a really young girl. At one point she becomes a woman, I believe, if I'm remembering it. It's a really great memoir, but like it's also like disgusting information about some of our favorite rock stars. It's the book that as a young woman, like my mom had read it and she recommended it to me. I think I actually read her copy, and it made me completely lose any respect I ever had for Elvis Presley way, years before it was kind of known that Elvis Presley was, fucking teens.
Also, haven't we learned not to DoorDash Plan B anymore? Like, isn't that what the UMich coach did?
Oh yeah, you have to just run to the pharmacy, is what Crystal's saying. Don't DoorDash. You don't want such a. You go to CVS and pay in cash for Plan B. I've bought in Plan B before because I bought it as a like a party gift basically for a show that I was doing.
Like it was a parting gift.
Yeah, it was like $80. It was a prize. And number one, I talked about how the woman at Dwayne Reed gave me such stank eye, but I was basically trying to remember. I don't think I had to provide. Did I have to provide identification that they put on file? No, I guess I didn't. I just wanted to make sure.
No,
I can't remember.
But it's just.
You have to in high school?
When we were in high school, I had to ask my friend's older sister to get me Plan B.
In New York State?
In Jersey.
In New Jersey? Interesting.
Because you had to be over 16, I think.
Maybe they just looked at me and they knew that I was over 16. Well, I guess. I hope this was, probably like 5 years ago, maybe. All right.
But there was also text between the mayor and the victim's mom, where the mom was asking, like, is there even a chance that you're pregnant? And Misty going like, LOL, no.
She's also 43, which is God's Plan B.
No. But she double checked to make sure that she was on birth control, and then in the text message she insinuates that like regardless she took Plan B just to be safe.
Sure. I mean,
she also, I believe, said the encounter didn't last long enough for there to be a pregnancy. You got nothing to worry about.
Well, so is she trying to imply that he came outside of her vagina? Because otherwise, if it's like fast, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, it could be a thing where it's like, yeah, she's, you go to touch a young man down there and
A
he's not
boy.
ready for it. Right. Yeah. But as the right would call.
I don't like you scanning back to yourself and saying these crazy things in front of the GWF banner. We're gonna have to take we're gonna have to take this down in the future when Mike speaks because it's not associated with that brand.
I'm gonna pull myself off camera. But no, like the I mean, it could be a thing like, yeah, obviously like premature ejaculation, or could be a thing like her son and nephew are outside taking pictures when she's hooking up with this kid. That prevented it from getting to a point where...
Ew, this whole thing is nasty. Sorry, what you're okay? Sorry, Mike loves it. Let's go.
I am concerned by any of the parents who are like, "Hey, come drink at my house. I'd rather you be under my roof."
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We don't need a cool mom the same way we don't need a cool president. We need a mom and a president who are cunts.
I don't know if that's cool mom stuff as much as it is like I'd rather know what my kid is doing. You know what I mean?
It's someone who feels like they have no actual control over their child because they've been trying to be their child's friend instead of their child's parents, and it's also somewhat giving. It's very much giving. I peaked in high school and I'm yearning to be back when I was popular instead of in suburban mom life where I'm flailing.
Ooh, I like that. Because I was like, usually when we see this story, it's teachers, right? And I've been kind of like, doing like the mental gymnastics around the idea of like a young woman getting out of college, right? Going and getting her master's. So she's still in a school system and then immediately going right back into a school system where you've never had any kind of like not school life to compare it to. So like you find some of these young female teachers are like, they're still attracted to the popular boy in school because like that's hardwired in.
We had this conversation actually regarding a young teacher having a relationship in quotes because it's still statutory rape with a student, and that was it. It's always the same type of. It's like this mousy woman who never peaked in high school, going back to high school, and then exactly as you said, still being under the spell of the most popular boy in high school, and and he's on board with someone who he would never have talked to if he was in the same class because she's older, a woman. So it's still like an interesting pursuit for him. Anyway, I could talk about that all day. That's my specialty. But we got to talk about how Pam Bondi was subpoenaed. This is from Politico. We're into girl now. House committee subpoenas Pam Bondi to testify on her handling of the Epstein case. A House committee voted Wednesday, today, to subpoena Attorney General Pam Bondi to testify about her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. 5 Republicans joined with all Democrats in support of a motion to call the nation's top law enforcement official up to Capitol Hill for questioning, and the motion itself was offered by GOP Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina. Nancy Mace has been going hard because she's a survivor herself. But she also, likes to make things her whole personality and has said terrible things about trans people, et cetera, in the past. It underscores the increasing frustration with Bondi among members of her own party, catalyzed in part by the Epstein saga. The Justice Department did not immediately return a request for comment. Representatives Lauren Boebert of Colorado. Oh, sorry, am I confusing Nancy Mace and Lauren Boebert? I think because there was someone who was saying that they were a survivor who was pushing back on Hillary Clinton when she was during her deposition, and maybe that was Lauren Boebert because it was Lauren Boebert who posted the picture of Hillary Clinton, right? Sorry, I might have to retract that. Representatives Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, and Michael Cloud of Texas were the other Republicans on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee to break rank Wednesday afternoon. Committee Chair James Comer attempted to stave off the subpoena effort, saying Bondi's chief of staff had told him the Attorney General would be available to give member-level briefings around her department's approach to the Epstein case. But critics in both parties have accused Bondi of slow-walking the release of the Epstein files. It was her announcement that the DOJ would not make further information available in the Epstein matter that sparked outrage last summer, culminating in a vote by an oversight subcommittee to force her hand. In November, Congress passed legislation further demanding all materials in DOJ's possession relating to the convicted sex offender be released. After a delay in publication of documents by the statutory deadline, the department announced earlier this year that it would be withholding millions of additional pages. We're going to be talking about real substantive issues like the 65,000 documents that are being hidden by the DOJ right now, Mace told reporters Wednesday after the vote. So that's just a little bit. We'll keep following that. This is another interesting thing that I saw this week. First of all, I'm going to be taking this article from notice.org, which is News of the United States, I believe. I think we might have used this once previously, pretty recently. But yes, this is all about how centrist Democrats are plotting how not to blow it in 2028 and are pushing back against AOC. Wait, this is the right one, right? I think so. Let's see. I want to make sure. All right. So at a conference in South Carolina, moderates shared data, advice, and gripes as they set out to try and get a candidate who can win a primary and defeat Trumpism. Centrist Democrats are beginning to plot for the next presidential election, and they're organizing around a warning. Democrats need to moderate before 2028 or they'll lose another presidential race to MAGA. Ultimately, the question is, are we going to nominate someone in 28 who is going to try to appeal to enough moderates that we can win the White House in both chambers or not? Matt Bennett, Executive Vice President of Public Affairs for the center-left think tank Third Way, said in an interview, it's very simple. No, I'm going to push back and say it's not very simple, Matt, because I think this is the wrong approach. This is the approach that got us fucked before. I think the approach is really have a progressive candidate but stay away from like the traditional liberal identity politics and just really have whoever the Democrat, nominee is actually be for the working people and not just be a diet Republican. I think to go moderate for the Democratic choice is a bad move. I don't know. What do you guys think? I feel like we have to go for something fresh and not necessarily like, oh, super, super lefty. Like, I don't think a Zoran Mamdani is working for all of America, but I think more someone who is, again, not like leaning a lot of the conversations that the liberals love to have, like the trans conversation where the Republicans are dragging us into it and we're taking the bait constantly. We kind of have to go a little bit radio silent on that, and it has to be a wink, wink. We'll take care of it when we're in office, and really, really appeal to that working class. And again, get people on board who have lost faith in the democratic process.
Look, I'm watching the situation in Texas, right, with Talarico, and like my big concern there is one of his biggest donors is Miriam Adelson.
We're going to talk about that, yeah.
I'm just saying, like I think regardless of who the Democratic choice is going to be, chances are it's going to be somebody who's got the same donors that Donald Trump does.
Because it's only a finite amount of people in the country who have this kind of money, and so. Well, I mean, that's why, I mean, is it, I guess then the question, it leads me to the question, is it possible to have a grassroots funded president win the election? I think it is, but.
If ever there was a time.
Right, the time is now.
I mean, we're talking like how fractured is the Republican Party?
I mean, so fractured that Nick Fuentes is telling Republicans to either not vote in the primaries or if they do vote, to vote for Democrats.
Yeah, I mean...
That was Nick Fuentes' soundbite from this week.
The one lone exception, I'm sure, is Fishback in Florida, who is, as groiper as they come. But it's like, I don't know, like... You're looking at a situation where the Republicans don't have a very clear nominee. Like, I think people would actively reject like a Rubio Vance ticket or.
Well, Marco Rubio seems like the choice. I think they should go Tucker Carlson, but
Tucker's too quote unquote anti-establishment for what the Republican establishment is. He's controlled opposition, right? Like his son is on JD Vance's like press team, right? So any kind of railing against this administration that you're doing is in fact controlled opposition. Your son is right next to the one heartbeat away from the seat of power, right? So it's like, what are we talking about here? So I it's just for the messaging and all that, I don't think Tucker's the guy. Tucker is pretty firmly entrenched as like, his place in it is not to run. It's to be the guy who's like, I'm a Republican who's super anti-war.
Right. All right. Back to the article. Third Way hosted a conference of centrist Democrats called Winning the Middle over Sunday and Monday, inviting Democratic strategists and elected officials from across the country to discuss how they can best steer the party toward a moderate candidate during the next presidential primary. They're trying to learn not just from past Democratic failures, but from their own setbacks, too, with leaders drilling in on what they considered to be former President Joe Biden's abandonment of centrism once he hit the White House. I don't think that's true. I think he was pretty centrist. Attendees watched presentations on in-depth poll data touting a moderate approach, speeches castigating party leaders for mocking religious voters, and forums with local Democratic elected officials recounting their fights against liberal activists. And that's interesting. I think anti-religion isn't the way. And this is a comment I actually had on Zoran Mamdani. Obviously, it's like Ramadan right now, and he's been like posting a lot of like very religious pictures. And this is not obviously because he is Muslim. I've been long critical of the muddying of the line between separation of church and state, and the same criticism that I've given to Christians the whole time, I'm going to give to him as well. I just don't understand like why we're having pictures of you praying on your Instagram when you're like, and like this is part of what you're telling the people as mayor. Like I understand you want different groups of people to be seen. Yes, of course. But like the constant prayer from any religious background in political spaces drives me fucking nuts. I would say it for anyone. And it's also like, can you imagine I had been elected mayor, I'm practicing Wicca in fucking Gracie Mansion. Can you imagine? So it's just, but I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't be posting things about it. Number one, because people don't understand Wicca, but also just because that's my personal thing. And we know, and I acknowledge and I respect that part of Zoran Mamdani's part of what makes him tick and the moral compass by which he lives is in part based on the fact that he is Muslim. That's great, but that's your personal business. And again, this goes for Christians, this goes for Jews, this goes for everyone. I just don't understand, like, are we separating church and state or are we not? It's really weighing me down. The speakers all agreed the party needs to stop using land acknowledgements and listening to blue sky and start articulating a strong but tempered approach that emphasizes getting things done. That's so funny. I just wrote a joke that does talk about land acknowledgements, because it's just like land acknowledgements, I think, are such a fuck you to indigenous people, because it's literally leftists saying, hey, we know you're on our land. We're acknowledging it, but we're not moving. Like, what? Get the fuck out of here. Give indigenous people a cut or don't mention it. Democrats are embroiled in a simmering debate between the party's centrist and progressive wings over how it can return to political power after the electoral wipeout of 2024. And again, I just think it's not centrist, it's not progressive. It's go back to being the party of the working people. That's the language we should be using. We shouldn't be using centrist. We shouldn't be using progressive. Everyday people, this is what we concentrate on to win, but then actually serve those people. Contra the centrists, leftist leaders have argued that the party must embrace a bold vision of economic populism to energize its base and win over independent blue-collar voters. And for the love of God, use language that everyone can understand. You're losing voters on the left by using language that people do not fucking understand. That debate and Monday's conference is now playing out against the outbreak of President Donald Trump's decision to launch an expansive bombing campaign in Iran, potentially plunging the country into its first prolonged war since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. The conflict did not discourage any political discussion here among Democrats who appear to be almost uniformly against Trump's action. Given the war, should we be gathering here and now to chart the future for Democrats? My answer, you're damn right we should be, Jonathan Cohen, Third Way's founder, said in a speech opening the conference, because we can hate the regime in Iran and you can celebrate their downfall, but you can also have legitimate skepticism about the war. Cohen's remarks, however, or Cowan's remarks, however, focused on what he said were a lot of hard truths Democrats had to accept about their party and its woeful state, blaming its losses on left-wing ideas like defunding the police and eliminating the use of fossil fuels. The drift left started after former President Barack Obama left office in 2017, he said, pushed by progressive organizations more interested in winning votes from socialists than appealing to regular voters. I also think we have to have, like, speaking of Barack Obama, I think, and we'll talk about this with James Talarico, is what we see now is we need to have a campaign that is led by someone who is a good speaker, who is using language that we understand, and who is running a positive campaign. That's been a real theme of the past 2 years. Candidates who run positive campaigns that talk about unifying, that promise to back the other candidate if they do not win, and spend more time presenting new ideas and a vision for the place in which they live, and not a lot of time bashing their opponents. That has been a winning strategy. And I think we really need to concentrate on that. Ideas, vision, getting people together, converting people, and not a lot of time bashing other candidates. That doesn't seem to work anymore. He and other speakers emphasized throughout the conference that Democratic candidates who adopt a moderate approach will be rewarded by Democratic voters, in large part because they believe rank-and-file members of the party are much less liberal than is widely believed. 1/3 of the party's primary voters identify as moderate, according to a new poll from Third Way presented at the conference, with as many of them saying they are conservative, 5%, as socialist, 6%. 3/4 of Democratic vote. Yeah, I mean, yes, if we're talking super left-leaning, I agree. We shouldn't, especially for a president, be leaning into the word socialist, but that's a different thing. You could still be pretty progressive without using the language socialist, because the whole country is not ready for that. 3/4 of Democratic voters, meanwhile, would prefer a candidate who compromises to achieve their goals, compared with just 1/4 of them who want a candidate willing to stick to their principles even if they get less done. Democratic primary voters are more likely to watch Law and Order than heated rivalry, said one speaker, saying that candidates need to recalibrate what they think the average member of the party looks like and believes. And a lot of this, I think, ties back into, like, we get a lot of our information politically from online, but online is a very small percentage of people. And many people who are spending exorbitant amounts of time online are coastal people, are people who are, a lot of them are single, don't have children, have kind of a different trajectory for themselves. And, a lot of times these family, your average mom doesn't have hours of her day to spend fighting on Instagram. Okay. And so we're losing out on, quote unquote, regular folks. I want you to remember that Blue Sky is not the place to go take the temperature of Democratic voters. Well, I mean, who's spending that much time? It's, if anything, you go to Threads, not Blue Sky, said Lene Erickson, Senior Vice President for Social Policy and Politics at Third Way. And the person in your mind should not be the campus protester. Centrist Democrats, including those at Third Way, celebrated the result of the last competitive Democratic presidential primary when Biden defeated Democratic Socialist challenger Bernie Sanders. That was a different time, though. Biden was the most moderate of all the major Democratic candidates that year, and his victory, a lot has happened since then. And his victory in the primary and later in the general election over Trump was viewed as a great victory for that faction of the party. But moderate Democrats now blame Biden for the party's loss in 2024 after he governed in a way they said was more in step with Sanders' agenda than the approach he had promised on the campaign trail. I disagree with that. I do not think it was that leftist. That's crazy. At times, the administration sounded like a caricature of wokeness. I don't think Joe Biden has ever sounded like a caricature of wokeness. I really, really don't. What made Biden lose was the fact that he was very elderly and waited until the last minute to throw Kamala into the race. Like, what are we even talking about right now? Mentioning Biden's immigration policy and plan to cancel student debt. Yes, age was a problem for Biden, but these failures had nothing to do with age. Okay, it has certainly had to do with his the aesthetics of the campaign. Biden's approach to governing wasn't the only mistake Democrats have made in the recent past, speakers said. Democratic Representative Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts said the party should have backed reopening schools by May 2020 when he said the medical evidence during the pandemic was clear that it should be done. Democrats need to start by saying it was wrong, Auchincloss said, and it's not going to happen again. I don't know that we even have to be bringing COVID up again. But
That's crazy.
I don't think we do.
That's like...
With all that's happened right now during the Trump administration, I actually don't even think we need to bring COVID up again.
Right, but you're giving those people such a leg to stand on when you don't admit the failures of COVID. But like... That was my issue with and how I landed on the Trump side was like, there's never any accountability on the left. None.
Oh, yeah, because MAGA is full of accountability.
No, but we don't expect there to be.
Oh, okay.
One's run by an ego man.
That's like saying, well, you're a woman. I expected you to behave better. We expect this bad behavior from men. Like, stop.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm just telling you that's the way it's viewed.
I think something that we can agree on as a whole is that we need more accountability from all politicians, period, hard stop. I can agree on you with that. But to make it seem like it is a Democratic issue is crazy.
Well, I mean, look, one party is headed by a guy that says my supporters would stick with me if I walked down and shot a guy in the middle of Fifth Avenue.
I know, I remember
There's
it
no
well.
one on the Democrat side that has that kind of loyalty from...
I think AOC is inching towards there.
Nowhere near it.
I think she's inching.
Kurt made a good point on the chat here. Just the Trump bad approach is a loser. Engage with a vision. Third way sucks. Basically, Republican light.
I agree, and that's kind of what I agree with the point where Trump bad is not going to win us, and that's exactly linking back to what I just said a couple moments ago about how we've seen a lot of success in kind of these cool hero campaigns with people running very positive campaigns with new ideas and people who are willing to sit in any chair and have conversations with anyone. That's really, really working for people. Brooke Jenkins, the district attorney of San Francisco, said even in her famously left-wing city, her constituents rewarded her for doing the basic work of prosecuting criminals. If your city charter says you're supposed to prosecute crime, Jenkins said. If you're supposed to clean the streets and do it effectively. Don't just check a box, make sure that the street is actually clean. Democrats could potentially have an enormous field of 2028 candidates, a list that includes 2024 presidential nominee Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, AOC, Mark Kelly, who is the Arizona senator, right? Ruben Gallego, Gretchen Whitmer, Andy Beshear, and Josh Shapiro. The conference singled out just a few of them. Whitmer, Beshear, and Shapiro each received praise during one presentation, which labeled them "get shit done Democrats" for their pragmatic approaches. All right, let's go into quickly the Clinton deposition, and then we'll get into our two main stories. All right, so I don't want to spend this much time on the Clinton deposition. I want like a shorter article. Let me go into this Clinton deposition. Let's see, hot tub. Sorry, I had a New York Times article, and I just feel like it's too long for this point in the show for something that I don't feel is nearly as important as other things that we are getting into. I mean, obviously, we know there was a photo leaked during Hillary Clinton's deposition. That was a whole thing after they all agreed on not doing that. And then this is from USA Today. Bill Clinton testifies about hot tub photo in Epstein deposition. Obviously, I think Bill's thoughts a lot more interesting than Hillary. I do. Listen, I think it's true that Hillary Clinton didn't actually know Jeffrey Epstein in real life, but what I do think is that it's crazy for her to try to make us believe that she didn't know what was going on. Bill 100% knew what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, whether or not he was actually physically involved with any minors. Again, we know he's a philanderer. Just because you're someone who fucks people as young as you can get them and uses your power to fuck people that you shouldn't be fucking and cheats on your wife, that doesn't make you a pedophile. So I do want to make that thing, but it doesn't give us a lot of trust in you or in your words. I think there's zero chance that Bill Clinton didn't know what kind of a guy Jeffrey Epstein was. And I also think there's zero chance that everything Bill Clinton knew, he didn't tell Hillary. The point was brought up that it's like, well, you know, Bill obviously was like cheating on his wife. So maybe he was keeping some things that were happening on Epstein Island from Hillary. Possible. I just don't think that both of those people, to make it as far as they made it in politics and just in the world in the United States, didn't know what kind of a guy Jeffrey Epstein does. They would have enough mutual people. Like, we know gossip spreads, rumor spreads. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it.
Ghislaine was at Chelsea Clinton's
I know,
wedding.
as a +1, Mike, as a +1. You can't control +1s. Former President Bill Clinton told House Oversight Committee investigators that he was unaware that photographs of him in a hot tub that were later released as part of the Epstein files had ever been taken. The images shows Clinton lounging in a hot tub with a woman whose face has been redacted. A second photograph shows Clinton in a swimming pool with a woman whose face has been redacted and another woman who appears to be Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted accomplice of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Wait, is it? Now I was saying, is it Ghislaine? Isn't it Ghislaine? Am I?
Ghislaine.
What?
Ghislaine.
Yeah, I was like, there's no S, right? It's Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay. About halfway through his more than 4-hour deposition, Clinton testified that he did not know the identity of the woman in the hot tub photo and denied engaging in any sexual activity with her. He added that a Secret Service agent was present at the other end of the pool. Clinton said he was introduced to Epstein by former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, who described Epstein as a donor willing to fly Clinton and his staff around the world as Clinton worked to establish a charitable AIDS foundation. According to Clinton, the photographs were taken during a trip to Brunei at the invitation of the country's sultan. He invited me to stay there, and he said, "I want you to stay at this hotel, and I hope you'll use the pool," Clinton said. "I swam around, I sat in the hot tub for 5 minutes or whatever it was, and I got up and I went to bed." Clinton acknowledged flying on Epstein's jet on trips to Asia, Africa, and Europe, as well as once from Florida to New York, but said he moved on to other donors after 2003. All right.
Did you see the pretty damning little gif of him looking at the photos?
I think I know what you're talking about.
They pass him a book and he looks through and he's literally grinning ear to ear.
He's taking a trip down memory lane.
Thumbing through them and they have to snatch it out of his hand.
Because there was a comic who did a spoof of that, Caroline, I don't know how you say her last, Bankowitz or something. And it was really funny. I saw that
she's
floating
good.
around. I don't know her in real life, but her stuff online is really funny. I thought Mr. Epstein was an interesting man, but I didn't know he was really interested in what I was doing, Clinton said. In his opening statement, Clinton said he had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. He is the first former president to testify before lawmakers. The deposition was taken February 27th, one day after former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton appeared before the same committee. Videos of both depositions were released on March 2nd. The Clintons have never been formally accused of wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. So I think that's enough just didn't want you to think that I wasn't talking about the Clintons. I don't want Mike going, well, you're just not talking about Hillary Clinton stuff. I get it. All right, so I want to go right into the main story. The two main stories are the Talarico Crockett showdown. We've been following that a lot. Then, of course, the attack on Iran. So first off, let me see. I want to read a piece from the Tilt by Nate Cohen that we haven't gone to the Tilt in a while, but that's, the New York Times subscriber only piece. Let me not sign up for the newsletter. I want to sign in. What are you talking about? Okay, so give me the freaking letter. Sorry. The Tilt. Where is this? Sorry, I'm getting logged out of things because of my Gmail. Why won't this let me in? Maybe this is what it is. Okay, I think this is what we want to go to. Okay, so high turnout, unusual coalitions, lessons from the Texas primary. And this, of course, by Nate Cohen. Again, this is from the newsletter, The Tilt, that is part of the New York Times, but it's subscriber only. The first primary of the season is in the books, and for all the attention on the Texas Senate Democratic race, there's a case that the Republican primary was the most significant result of the night. After all, James Talarico was a modest favorite in the Democratic race before his win over Jasmine Crockett, even if the outcome was still uncertain heading into Election Day. John Cornyn, the Republican incumbent, was not a favorite at all. He trailed in the polls, and the betting markets gave his main opponent, Ken Paxton, around an 80% chance to eventually win the nomination, with an outside chance that Mr. Paxton could reach the 50% of the vote necessary to avoid a runoff. But as of this hour, not only are we headed to a runoff, but Mr. Cornyn actually won more votes. Mr. Cornyn's strength is pretty consequential. Most obviously, it makes him seem more competitive in the runoff. It might also increase the chance of an endorsement from President Trump. And if Mr. Cornyn ultimately prevails, he will be a much stronger candidate in the general election than Mr. Paxton, who brings a lot of personal and political liabilities. Mr. Talarico's chances of winning Texas in November don't necessarily depend on a Paxton victory, but if one stipulates that Democrats wanted a perfect storm to help turn Texas blue with a strong nominee, a weak Republican opponent, and a favorable Democratic political environment, a Cornyn nomination would spoil one of those conditions. Here are a few other observations on the results from Tuesday night. Not what was billed. For months, the two Texas Senate primaries were cast as referendums on each party's deepest divides. For Democrats, many perceived it as a fight between the party's progressive left and its moderates. For Republicans, it was ostensibly a contest between MAGA and the Republican establishment. Neither race ever quite fit the billing, as the results confirm. Usually, in a Republican primary, the MAGA candidate wins by overwhelming margins in rural areas, while the establishment one wins the most affluent and highly educated enclaves. That's not what happened. In the end, Mr. Paxton won by only 4 points in rural areas. There were wide swaths of central Texas that went Mr. Cornyn's way. Perhaps it shouldn't have been a surprise. President Trump didn't endorse Mr. Paxton, while Mr. Cornyn is a well-known incumbent with a huge financial advantage. On the Democratic side, the perceived moderate candidate, Mr. Talarico, won the state's usual progressive strongholds. He carried nearly all of the counties won by Bernie Sanders in the Democratic presidential primary against Joe Biden in 2020. He won college campuses and gentrifying neighborhoods, but he also won the leafy gated communities that usually line up against those more progressive strongholds. In other words, if the New York mayoral race pit the wealthy Upper East Side against the younger Bushwick, Mr. Talarico basically won Texas's equivalents of both, usually with overwhelming margins. It's a strong indication that this election wasn't really about the Democratic Party's usual divides, despite the prevailing framing of the race. A racially polarized primary. And we've been talking about that a lot on this show. What was, racially and the sex divide. What was an enormous factor in the contest? Race. Ms. Crockett dominated majority Black areas. She routinely won more than 90% of the vote in majority Black precincts in metropolitan and eastern Texas. Mr. Talarico, on the other hand, essentially swept areas where Black voters represented a below-average share of the population. White, Hispanic, and in a very small and potentially unrepresentative sample, Asian precincts appeared to support him by a wide margin. In highly educated and liberal white areas, Mr. Talarico ran up the score. He won more than 80% or even 90% of the vote in the relatively white and affluent communities west of Houston and Austin or north of Dallas. And I know I've been into New York too long because I almost said Houston. Hispanic voters backed Mr. Talarico by a comfortable margin. He won about 2/3 of the vote in the South Texas counties along the border, for example, and he appeared to fare similarly well in the majority Hispanic precincts in the state's major metropolitan areas. Well, I mean, let's just call a spade here. And we like to talk about things as if because they are people of color, Hispanic people are more likely to be on Black people's side, and that's not true. There's a lot of racism amongst Hispanic people, same as there's a lot of against Black people. Like many Hispanic people have racism against Black people the same way that white people do. So I think that's something that hopefully we're getting a hold of now, especially because there's so many Hispanic voters who are MAGA. Hopefully not anymore after ICE. But again, like I think that's a major oversight of the Democratic Party. Missing Democratic Hispanic voters. While the turnout was high and Mr. Talarico did well among Hispanic voters, there were lingering signs of dissent among the state's Hispanic voters, especially along the Rio Grande. Many there didn't cast ballots in the Senate race or voted for Ahmed Hassan, who won about 1% of the votes statewide. Take Starr County, a heavily Hispanic county along the Rio Grande. It was ground zero for the Trump surge among Hispanic voters. He won the county by 16 points in 2024. Hillary Clinton won it 79-19 just 8 years earlier. The turnout was enormous, leading some to highlight the surge as a sign of a Democratic rebound. Well, about half of the Democratic primary voters left their ballots blank in the Senate race and left their ballots blank for most races other than the county judge election. And among those who did vote in the Senate race, 8% voted for Mr. Hassan. This doesn't mean Democrats won't do much better among Hispanic voters in Texas in November, but at the very least, it's a reminder that primary participation is an imperfect measure of someone's current political allegiances. Democratic turnout was huge, and this was a big point that they were making. Whatever the limitations of primary turnout, the fact remains that the turnout in the Democratic primary was exceptional. That's true even if we limit ourselves to the ballots cast in the Senate race. With nearly all of the votes counted, about 51% of Texas Senate primary votes were cast in the Democratic race, compared with 49% in the Republican Senate contest. This is extraordinary. Usually Republican primary voters outnumber Democrats by around 20 percentage points in Texas. Democratic primary voters did outnumber Republicans by a similar margin in 2020, but that was a year with a competitive Democratic presidential primary and no marquee Republican race. This time, Republicans had a high-profile matchup of their own, one that would ordinarily decide the next U.S. senator from the state. But more people decided to vote in the Democratic race anyway, and no, those who voted in the Democratic primary can't vote in the Republican runoff in May. The same story held in North Carolina, where neither statewide race was especially competitive. There, 50% of the voters cast ballots in the Democratic primary to just 43% on the Republican side. On its own, primary turnout doesn't necessarily mean much for the general election, but Tuesday's numbers are part of a broader pattern of high Democratic turnout, including in special elections and last year's general elections in New Jersey and Virginia. It follows a longer-term trend of the party out of power faring well in off-year elections, especially when the president is unpopular. And it's yet another sign, if a modest one, that this year's midterms is shaping up to be a strong one for Democrats. And we know that the Republicans fear that. That's been on the table for quite some time now. All right, what else do we want to talk about for Talarico and Crockett? BBC did an article about the takeaways. I think this is kind of similar to actually what we just read. Jasmine Crockett, there was a lot of like voter suppression-y type things happening. Jasmine Crockett did file a lawsuit. This is from AOL via Fox News. It said Jasmine Crockett mocked for alleging GOP rigged Democratic Summit primary, claiming cheating occurred. Unfortunately, anytime you say there was cheating as the loser, like it just doesn't kind of look good. But there was many reports of voter suppression and fuckery, which is super common, especially amongst areas where you're going to have a high turnout of Black voters. I mean, that is the American way. Representative Jasmine Crockett was mocked on Wednesday after suggesting cheating occurred in the Texas Senate race and arguing that the Republicans rigged her Senate election as James Talarico became the projected winner early Wednesday morning. Again, that also doesn't align with what has been being talked about, which is it would have been the Republicans' dream, actually, to have Jasmine Crockett win this because they think she's easier to go up against than Talarico. So that doesn't quite check out. Critics called Crockett out for the suggestions on X, including many that pointed out the GOP would rather have run against the progressive firebrand. If Republicans had rigged the election, Miss Crockett, the results would look a bit different, the Washington Examiner's Tim Carney wrote on X. Talarico, a Democratic state lawmaker from Texas, defeated Crockett in the Senate primary on Tuesday as projected by the Associated Press. Commentary magazine editor John Poderitz said it was hilarious that Crockett was blaming Republicans. GOP would surely vastly prefer to run against Crockett, he added in a post to X. Former Republican lawmaker Pete Meyer wrote, it's true that the GOP meddled, but it was by A, convincing her to run, and B, saying things to try to get her votes. Jasmine Crockett lost her Senate primary, and she's been screaming about cheating and the race card and everything else all the way down. Happy to watch her help her party continue to lose in Texas in the general election, Tim Young, a Medio Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, wrote. All men, just if you weren't keeping tabs. Crockett, but I actually do, in this case, I'm not going to say it in such a cunty way, but I actually just agree that it doesn't make sense. Crockett
well, if the Heritage Foundation is saying it, it must be true.
Crockett suggested during a press conference with Colin Allred, a former lawmaker, on Tuesday evening that cheating occurred. If one person has the right to vote and they weren't allowed to cast their vote, we should all be standing together. I mean, she shouldn't call it cheating, though. She should call it voter suppression. I think that's a bit of it is cheating. But anytime you say like they cheated, again, this goes back into kind of what we were talking about, where I think a lot of people were resonating with the way that James Talarico was, quite frankly, wording things. Again, going back to their stances on Israel, almost fucking identical. People just liked how James Talarico was talking about it more. Democrats, Republicans, and we should all be raising hell. But unfortunately, this was always the plan. And so I am grateful for this court order. And as Congressman Allred has already stated, we encourage each and every one of you to remain resilient. Yes.
Is any of this tied into the SAVE Act?
I don't know.
Because I mean, that was the big concern for the midterms, was that like when the SAVE Act goes through and you know, women's who legally changed their name after marriage, it doesn't match their birth certificate, they're not going to be able to vote. So I'm wondering, like, if some of that voter suppression is a direct result of the SAVE Act, and if there's going to be way more to come as I mean, you know, this was the primaries for the midterms. This is easily the smallest voter turnout we're going to get.
Right. I mean, I guess we could just look into, if you do a quick scan of and try to find some quotes from people who were experiencing voter suppression. All right, let's say, all right, we cannot allow this type of, she continued, we cannot allow this type of behavior to be rewarded, because so long as they know that they can win, even if it means cheating, then they will continue to do it. So I am asking you, I am begging you to make sure that you go ahead and figure out where it is that you are supposed to vote, stand in line, wait in line, and if it means that I got to come out there with you to wait with you, I will do that, Crockett said Tuesday evening. She's right. Crockett voters need to punish Talarico and the Democrats in November, Ryan James Gurdusky, journalist and author of the National Populist newsletter, quipped in response to Crockett alleging cheating. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. For the betterment of the party overall, we want to pretty quickly align with Talarico. But, you know, if voter suppression happened, and it certainly seems like it was based on the reports, that needs to be handled. If we can't just say, oh, you're being a sore loser. Like, voter suppression is a huge problem. Early Wednesday morning, Crockett suggested Republicans tried to rig her primary race after the state's Supreme Court ruled in an emergency decision against her campaign's request to give voters from Dallas County an extension to sort out confusion about Republican-led changes to polling locations. Crockett's claims came after the Texas Supreme Court knocked down a lower judge's ruling to keep polling places open longer, mandating that any votes cast after the initial closing time be separated. Democrats pushed for polling locations to be open longer amid polling location restrictions that resulted from Republicans and Democrats not holding joint primaries. She told a group of supporters that she did not believe they would know the election results tonight. So that's my news. It's that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, even though many outlets at that point when she made that statement, because I was watching it in real time, had called it, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do, and so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why, she told the group gathered to celebrate her potential victory. Bye, the New York Post's Miranda Devine wrote.
Oh, she has since conceded?
Jasmine Crockett? Yeah, she conceded. Other pointed fingers at the Democrats and the situation between Talarico and late-night host Stephen Colbert, who claimed in February that CBS stopped his interview with the Democratic nominee for Senate from airing on his show. CBS denied that it stopped the show from airing the interview and said that Colbert's show was just provided advice that included offering Crockett equal time. It's like Stacey Abrams, but different, Fox News' Joe Concha wrote. And like, it's Fox News, so Joe Concha's being cunty, but it actually is, I think, like Stacey Abrams. My mom and I were having this conversation earlier because it was not too long ago where I was kind of thinking like, what the fuck happened to Stacey Abrams? She was like the toast of the town and it just kind of went nowhere. And again, I do think that racism and misogyny were part of that. Stacey Abrams, very viable candidate. Crockett's office did not immediately respond to Fox News Digital's request for comment. Crockett conceded the race on Wednesday and said in a post to X that she spoke to Talarico. But I also think that the Democrats are going to struggle for things that actually have to do with racism and misogyny, because when you're constantly crying racism and misogyny, when racism and misogyny are actually at play, it's going to be hard to get people on your side, because you're always fucking playing with identity, when identity is actually a part of it, it's going to be so hard to make that argument. And that's a mistake that the left has made. And then last thing on this Talarico Crockett race, this is from Politico. Dem darling showered with Miriam Adelson linked money. This is Mike's favorite topic, or one of his. Texas.
This is an old article, by the way.
From
25. I want to say November of 25.
No, it's from August of 25. But you know, we'll go over it. But thank you for pointing that out, since you did just email it to me today. But Texas Democrat James Talarico has built a national profile railing against GOP billionaires in politics, but has quietly accepted funds from a PAC backed by one of the wealthiest donors in the Republican Party. Well, they wanted moderate. They're getting moderate, I guess. The single biggest donor to Talarico's state house reelection bid last year was a group funded by casino mogul Miriam Adelson, according to state campaign finance data. Adelson, the widow of the late Republican megadonor. The widow megadonor Sheldon Adelson is one of President Donald Trump's largest financial supporters and seen as a boogeyman by much of the left. Talarico is now considering a run for Senate, which would test whether such ties are a vulnerability at a time when liberal voters say they want Democrats to aggressively take on Trump. And what's interesting, and again, you just sent me this article, so I haven't gone through this whole article yet, but I do wonder what the laws are, because they do vary from state to state. But if I wanted to run for a different office, and so they're saying his House reelection bid was funded in part by Miriam Adelson, and I know people could push back and say, well, that's not his Senate campaign. But depending on where you are, it could be the same money, because although you do usually have to close your campaign account for every race you won, you are, at least in New York, allowed to move that money over to a new campaign if you are intending on running for another office. So for instance, I did not do this, but if I had wanted to, the money that I had left over from my mayoral campaign, I could have closed my mayoral account and then opened a new campaign account and say, prepared for a run for Congress. I could have done that with the money. So just keep, again, it could be different everywhere, but for New York rules, and again, I don't know everything, but it is very likely that if you are donating to a candidate for one position, just so you guys know, you could ultimately end up funding them for another position. That is a possibility depending on where you are. Let's see. Talarico received a total of $59,000 from the Texas Sands PAC through donations in February and December of 2024, according to the state campaign finance records. That makes the group both his biggest donor last year and one of his largest since he first ran for the state legislature in 2018. Asked about the funding, Talarico spokesperson Antonio Esparza said that the state representative pushed for campaign finance reform, but, quote, he will not unilaterally disarm and let Texas Republicans play by different rules until the law changes. Representative Talarico believes our campaign finance system is deeply broken. Well, I agree with that. He said that's why he filed legislation to cap campaign contribution limits in the state of Texas. Texas does not have limits on political donations. Yes.
Rollover rules. Candidates may keep, transfer, or use unexpected campaign funds for future races, provided they do not switch to a federal office, which has different, stricter rules. Bill White is dealing with that right now. He's moving from either local to Senate to federal, or federal to local, and all but $1 million was able to be transferred into his war chest.
Okay, and that's interesting because actually that makes me think that I need to double check. When they said I could start a new campaign with my mayoral money, I would have to double check if they only meant I could start a new municipal campaign, because they did not specify that language. So don't quote me on that. So when I said I could move to Congress, that's not, I have to double check that, but I could definitely move to another municipal position, like if I wanted to run for a controller or something. So that's a good point. Because that does, that is weird, because it feels like you're donating under a false pretense almost.
Well, I mean, I've been criticizing the campaign finance laws for a while, just under the fact that, like,
they're a mess.
I mean, the fact that AOC is raising $10 million to fight for a essentially uncontested seat every couple of years when she's up for re-election. It's like, that's crazy. You're just building her war chest for when she does eventually make this presidential run. And you're building it over the course of a decade by taking in these, instead of taking in $200 million in a week like Kamala did, or
you were right. You finally said it right. You finally said it right.
I don't even try.
You finally said it right, and now you're trying to correct yourself.
The point I'm making is, like, unlike getting that very quick drop of cash, you can build it organically, quote unquote, over time. By getting funding for these, like I said, largely uncontested races.
But we can look into the receipts for that, and we would have to look and see how much when she's being uncontested, she is actually spending on re-election. But that's all that information is pretty publicly accessible. All right, moving on to the last part of our main or the second part of our main story, the second topic of our main story today. It's Iran. Heads up, Trump attacks Iran, and meanwhile, Saturday night, he also hosted a glitzy fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago. He was dancing to YMCA. Troops are dying already, and he's fucking doing YMCA. So this is just what's going on. And so Mike and I had been talking during the week, and this information about this being a religious war started on the Substack by Jonathan Larson. That's where this all started. And we were kind of wondering, like, is this information good enough for us to report on? And then some pretty major media outlets started reporting on it. But again, we kind of traced it back, and it was all tracing back to this initial reporting by Jonathan Larson March 2nd on his Substack. So the Substack, I'm going to go straight from the horse's mouth, because basically anything you're reading is coming from the originating source is this Jonathan Larson Substack. And just so you guys know, Jonathan Larson, he's not just a guy. He spent most of his career behind the scenes writing and producing for Dan Rather, Keith Olbermann, Chris Hayes, Lawrence O'Donnell, Rachel Maddow, Anderson Cooper, Mark Maron, and a ton of other folks. So this is a guy who will have connections, knows what he's doing, is not just putting gobbledygook into the universe. It says a combat unit commander told non-commissioned officers at a briefing Monday that the Iran war is part of God's plan, and that President Donald Trump was anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth. Scary stuff we're dealing with here, according to a complaint by a non-commissioned officer. From Saturday morning through Monday night, more than 110 similar complaints about commanders in every branch of the military had been logged by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. The complaints came from more than 40 different units spread across at least 30 military installations, the MRFF told me Monday night. The MRFF is keeping the complaints anonymous to prevent retribution by the Defense Department. The Pentagon did not immediately respond to my request for comment. One complaint identified themselves as a non-commissioned officer, NCO, in a unit currently outside the Iran combat zone, but in ready support status, deployable at any time. The NCO said that they were Christian and emailed the MRFF on behalf of 15 troops, including at least 11 Christians, 1 Muslim, and 1 Jew. The full email is printed below if you want to look at it. Again, his Substack is free. There is a free version if you just want to go on there. The NCO wrote to the MRFF that their commander urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan, and he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has enshrined evangelical Christianity at the uppermost levels of the U.S. military, airing monthly prayer meetings throughout the Pentagon. Last year, the Pentagon confirmed to me that Hegseth attends a weekly White House Bible study. It's led by a preacher who says God commands America to support Israel.
Isn't that the same White House faith advisor that we talked about very early on in the Trump campaign?
What do you mean? The one that we interviewed?
No. We talked about them having like a White House faith committee.
Right. But again, it is not specific to the Trump administration to have a faith committee. That has been going on. It's getting spotlighted kind of more than ever now. But that has gone back, I think, to like the Reagan administration. There was a White House faith council just to, I don't want to pin this all on Trump, but he's a lot more active in it, I would say, than other presidents. Monday's email from the NCO said that their commander's remarks destroy morale and unit cohesion and are in violation of the oaths we swore to support the Constitution. MRFF president and founder Mikey Weinstein, a veteran of the Air Force and the Reagan White House, told me that since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran early Saturday morning, the MRFF has been inundated with similar complaints. These calls have one damn thing in freaking common. Our MRFF clients report the unrestricted euphoria of their commanders and command chains as to how this new biblically sanctioned war is clearly the undeniable sign of the expeditious approach of the fundamentalist Christian end times as vividly described in the New Testament book of Revelation. Many of their commanders are especially delighted with how graphic this battle will be, zeroing in on how bloody all of this must become in order to fulfill and be in 100% accordance with fundamentalist Christian end of the world eschatology. Weinstein cited constitutional and uniform code of military justice prohibitions against injecting religious beliefs into official military instruction or messaging. He said any military members seeking to take advantage of their subordinates by advancing their blood-soaked Christian nationalism wet dreams upon the flames of this latest non-congressionally sanctioned attack against Iran should be swiftly, aggressively, and visibly prosecuted. Weinstein added that the MRFF receives similar complaints about Christian eschatology, end of the world theology, whenever this shit blows up with Israel in the Middle East. After the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack on Israel, for instance, the MRFF reported a complaint about an Air Force commander who said at the briefing that the war between Israel and Hamas has all been foretold by the book of Revelation in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and no one can do anything about that. After 9/11, President George W. Bush referred to the American crusade against terrorism, evoking the ancient clashes between Christian crusaders and Muslims. Bush's language was seen as potentially inspiring Muslims to take up arms against the U.S. if it proclaimed itself a Christian army waging war on Islam. French Foreign Minister Hubert Védrine said, "One has to avoid falling into this huge trap, this monstrous trap set by al-Qaeda with the 9/11 attacks." Bush dropped the term crusade. While Christian nationalism has simmered in the military for decades, Hegseth has ended even the pretense of official intolerance for it. Trump, too, has cast himself as a champion of Christian exceptionalism, embedding it within divisions of the executive branch. As I revealed last year, Hegseth sponsors the weekly White House Bible study that preaches support for Israel. Some Christians claim biblical prophecy requires Israel to exist for Jesus to return. But Hegseth's Bible study leader, preacher Ralph Drollinger, teaches that the reason to support Israel is that God still blesses Israel's allies and curses Israel's enemies, even though Israel killed Jesus. This smear, the historic root of anti-Semitism, has been rejected by every major religion. After Israel's attack on Iran last year, Drollinger dedicated 2 weeks of lessons to preaching support for Israel. His lessons went out to White House cabinet members and members of Congress, even as Israel, too, was lobbying for U.S. engagement. Hegseth has also initiated monthly prayer sessions, most recently featuring Doug Wilson, the far-right Christian nationalist. He has also brought in other preachers from his personal circle, rejecting any attempt at making the meetings ecumenical. Hegseth.
This guy used to play in the NBA.
Doug Wilson?
No, the other one, Drollinger.
Oh. Hegseth himself also speaks at these meetings, proselytizing his personal religious beliefs. This is, I think, exactly where we need to be as a nation at this moment, Hegseth reportedly said, in prayer on bended knee, recognizing the providence of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. This is so crazy. While the MRFF historically has been able to get the Pentagon to swat down Christian incursions into the military, the Trump administration is openly disdainful of military norms and law. It remains to be seen whether and how wholesale Christianization of the Iran war will be opposed by officials inside the Pentagon or political and legal advocates for secular values outside it. So again, that is the origin. And then...
Ooh, this is fun.
What?
Love is a Battlefield posted a comment. If this thing really pops off, we can expect to see all these jailed, undocumented men enlisted as a path to citizenship. That's interesting. A lot of fighting age men in a warehouse.
Oh, God.
Belonging to a Trump donor for hundreds of millions of dollars that you could, hey, you know, there's precedent for it. Civil War times, the Irishmen straight off the boat. Hey, go down to Tennessee, fight some guys. We'll make you a U.S. citizen.
Right. Well, I mean, isn't that? I mean, like, am I going? That's like kind of like America 101, making people who we've treated like shit or taken rights away from fight for us. Like that's
every empire.
Right. That's America 101.
In the history of everything. The Romans did it.
Ron Word, Jesus, Fox. Just want to. I was trying to see if there was kind of like another piece from like Fox. My God. So this is from Fox from March 2nd. Chasing the Apocalypse. Radical Shiite clerics on American soil preach prophetic showdown with U.S. I don't think this is exactly what we're looking for. Oh, boy. I mean, I don't even think we need that. That's the source of everything. That Substack is what's going on. I mean, is it believable? Yes, absolutely. And then here's one other Iran hypothesis. Again, please take this one that I'm about to play with a huge grain of salt because it is just a straight to camera video, which again, I know I've been going off about. This is a person who covers politics, has 627,000 followers. He is an economics policy and media analyst named Nathan Jun, Jun. So this is a little bit less crazy, but he has a follow the money hypothesis for Iran.
Unfortunately, I am spiraling and I have put on my tinfoil hat and I am going to present a hypothesis. I do not think that this is about the Epstein files. Hear me out before you get angry. On January 3rd, 2026, when we invaded Venezuela and captured Maduro, we took temporary control of Venezuela's oil exports and commerce. Venezuela has the largest oil reserve in the world. At first, this did not make complete sense because we cannot necessarily use Venezuela's oils because of the crudeness of it. But technically, we do control their oil sales right now. The largest beneficiaries of Venezuelan oil is China, Russia, and Cuba. The other country that China currently gets a majority of their oil reserves from is Iran. Besides Iranian leadership under this current regime, we are currently targeting Iranian naval bases. Why? Because Iranian naval bases are currently attempting to defend the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is a key shipping lane to be able to get oil to China. China knew that this was going to happen because they have been stockpiling oil reserves since January when the U.S. invaded Venezuela. They currently have enough oil to last them for approximately 100 days. But what happens when that 100 days winds down? their manufacturing completely stalls. But that's not where this stops. Look at the Q3, Q4 GDP report from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which is released by this administration. On page 2 of both reports, you will see that the Q3, Q4 GDP is currently being propped up by increased defense spending. Now, who is currently the biggest beneficiary of U.S. production of defense systems? It is not Israel. It is Saudi Arabia. Which country is currently trying to backfill China's oil reserve depletion? Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is currently the biggest beneficiary of us invading Venezuela and capturing Maduro, and also us invading Iran. Our biggest customer of the export that is currently propping up our economy is simultaneously the only country that is currently supplying China with oil. Now, why is the U.S. currently engaging in hypocrisy by propping up Saudi Arabia? $1 billion in 2 Trump towers in Jeddah and Riyadh. $2 billion from Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund into Jared Kushner's private equity fund. $2 billion into Trump's stablecoin, a $5.5 billion Trump golf course developed by a Saudi Arabia developer. Follow the fucking money.
And so again, as he says at the top of that, he's putting on his tinfoil hat, kind of denoting that this is a conspiracy theory that he came up with. But not only is he more reputable than other creators in many ways, I also saw a lot of like respected news, like, and again, kind of alternative news sources that are on Instagram reposting that. But again, please take that with a grain of salt. That is not at all verified. And I'm going to close this segment with a passage from Al Jazeera asking, why are U.S. and Israeli leaders framing the conflict with Iran as a religious war, right? By attempting to frame the conflict as a holy war, leaders are using theological beliefs to justify action, mobilize political opinion, and leverage support. Jalian Mitchell, a professor at Durham University in the UK, told Al Jazeera, many on both sides of this conflict believe that they have God on their side. God is enlisted in this conflict, as with many others, to support acts of violence. The demonization and dehumanization of the enemy, the other, will inevitably make building peace after the conflict even harder. There are several overlapping reasons, and they operate at different levels: domestic mobilization, civilizational framing, and strategic narrative construction. Ibrahim Absharif, an associate professor at Northwestern University in Qatar, told Al Jazeera. Domestic mobilization refers to rallying a country's own people. Leaders can frame conflict as religious and hence morally clear and urgent, rallying public support, he said. And that's interesting because I'm like, I don't, what percentage of America is rallying behind a religious war? I don't know. I'd love to see some stats on that. In a video, because like the New York Times, I believe, did do a poll on how many people were pro attacking Iran, and the number was quite low. That was the point of the whole article. In a video circulating on social media this week, Christian Zionist pastor and televangelist John Hagee is seen delivering a sermon promoting the U.S. assault on Iran. Hagee said that Russia, Turkey, what's left of Iran, and groups of Islamics will march into Israel. He said that God will crush the adversaries of Israel. Religious language mobilizes domestic constituencies, Absharif said, explaining that in the U.S., this connects deeply with many evangelists and Christian Zionists because they already see Middle East wars as part of a religious end-time story. References, I just feel like if your religion includes a war, something's wrong here. It should be like a code of morals that you are living by. Like, how is this getting so off book? References to the end times, the book of Revelation, or biblical enemies are not incidental. They activate a cultural script already present in American political theology. Civilizational framing refers to the creation of an us versus them dichotomy, which is so interesting because we were just talking about us versus them when it talked about things that are happening nationally, and now it's us versus them internationally. So us versus them, really a big theme this week. Substack and us versus them are our two themes of the week. Casting the conflict as a clash between whole ways of life or faiths, not just a dispute over borders or policy, he added. Hence, statements such as Hegseth's reference to the prophetic Islamic delusions simplify the terms of the war in the minds of ordinary people. Wars are difficult to justify in technical strategic language, Absharif said, casting the conflict as a struggle between civilization and fanaticism, or between biblical good and evil, transforms a complicated regional confrontation into a moral drama that ordinary audiences can easily grasp. A nice way of saying, you're dumb, so this is how we had to frame it. Israeli leadership has long used biblical reference as political language. So again, really doing bad at separating church and state. We are all familiar with it. The narratives have become globalized. In Israeli political discourse, this language situates contemporary conflict within a long historical narrative of Jewish survival, and it signals existential stakes, Ab Sharif said. So we got a scary mess on our hands, everyone.
You know, it's very funny.
I would say if you know how to build a bomb shelter, start now. Yes.
If you go back and read like how we talked about Afghanistan and Iraq, like the people of those nations back when, you know, the global war on terror was first starting. We talked about the fact that like if you're a young man in Afghanistan, you have very little prospects for marriage, for home ownership, for any of these other things. So of course, your life is that shit and you're turning towards Islamic extremism. And like they were running pieces in the New York Times about like, this is how you end up with a population like this. And
interesting.
Now you look at where we're at in America, where it's like no one can buy a home. All these Gen Z kids are talking about being like all of the Gen Z influencers are not fucking, right? Sophie Ray making the most money on OnlyFans, virgin. Nick Fuentes, virgin, right? You look at
very interesting, yeah.
So it's like nobody has these prospects of like, you know, the nuclear family or any of like the carrot on the string for generations.
And no prospects then kind of whittles down to no purpose. So when you need a purpose, what do you gravitate towards? And this goes across the board for everyone, whether you're talking about angel numbers or something mainstream like Christianity. When you have no prospects and no purpose, you gravitate towards religion. And I'm not saying that is the only reason to be religious, but it is a core reason for a large group of people to suddenly gravitate towards religion. I'm not saying that if you are religious, you have no prospects. That's not at all what I'm saying. But in a time when you feel hopeless, you need something to cling on to, and that is what religion offers.
I just think it's interesting that it's like, we're now just stealing Iran's playbook by being like, this is a holy war for God, right? Like it's been deemed by the good book, so we need to go fight these people. And any lives that are given up are a worthy sacrifice in God's cause.
Fuck, man. This is so dark.
20 years. That's all it took. 25 years.
The public's mind is pretty fickle. It's short term. I mean, you know, and that's what I you know was saying before when it's like people aren't forgetting about Minnesota. It's just we can only grasp onto a concept for so long, and you know that includes religious wars where people died. This
is interesting too. Like they're talking about the Strait of Hormuz, right? The gentleman in that video that you played was talking about the strait and how you know Trump is going down there and offering assurances, and the Navy's going to help these tankers. A lot of insurance companies have already pulled out.
Oh,
right?
Interesting.
Once the first tanker got bombed, the like insurance, it like triggers like an automatic thing with insurance policies where it's like, oh, there's an active war in this situation. We can't insure any boat that goes through it.
Interesting.
So it's like all right, if you lose that insurance, now these boats can't leave port. If these boats can't leave port, that's actually going to disrupt supply chains more than anything. And that's the thing that Trump never factored in was like, you know, we are in this weird system of capitalism where it's like you have to dot your I's and cross your T's on every single contract. And because you pop this off, right, this pre-retaliation that Marco Rubio was talking about, that really, that got my blood boiling a little bit earlier.
Right.
But like that concept is like you've now found yourself in a situation where like there's no workaround. I don't care what assurances you give people. If those boats can't leave port without insurance, then supply chains are going to get messed up. And Love is a Battlefield in the chat said, I'm literally buying everything I can imagine needing this year off Amazon the last few days. Good chance supply lines are impacted by this.
So you're funding with the war. We know somehow Jeff Bezos' money is going back to fund this war.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's either that or...
Prepare for the war by funding the war. That's what I always say. America at its best. Whatever. None of us as individuals can stop it. But remember, there is a positive us versus them. And I don't like again, it feels so clear, but so many people still think there's a different us versus them. And if that's the one thing I can leave you with today, please convince your friends that there is an us versus them. It's not the one they think it is, though. On that note, thank you for joining us today. Make sure to follow me on all social media. I'm at Philanthropy Gal. Make sure to be subscribed to our YouTube, no matter how you listen to Without a Country. It's the Without a Country YouTube. And we also have an Instagram, Without a Country podcast. And of course, if you are in New York City or if you're visiting New York City Tuesday, March 10th, which is this coming Tuesday, I am doing the Disrupt panel at Berry Park in Williamsburg, 7 p.m. You can get tickets via the Disrupt Instagram. The link is in their bio. It's via Act Blue. Don't be alarmed. Again, that's a very normal political fundraising site. So they're just using that. And Mike, do you have anything that you want to promote?
Yeah, April 9th, we're back, the Armored League at the Palladium. Biggest show you've ever done. Going to be our first time in Manhattan in over 18 months. Head on over to thearmoredleague.com for tickets. And then Anxiety Attack is coming up. You were on the last one, Corinne. It was a very fun show. March 19th.
It was. I got a lot of stuff done.
March 19th, New York Comedy Club, East 4th Street, 10 p.m. show. Caitlin Palufo and Osama Siddiqui signed up so far, so get tickets now.
I mean, I like these signed up. Just, jot them down. Remember that they're on the show. Both great comics if Mike remembers they were booked. Guys, thank you so much for watching the show. If you want to support the show for as little as $6 a month, head over to withoutacountry.com/Patreon. And you'll get a free video news story every single week that I do the show. And that's it. All hail to our great dictator, Christopher Fungi. Again, if you want to email me anything, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. We have a lot of work to do, but I really appreciate you guys being here, and have a great night. Peace. Bye.